Chapter 1980. A strand of silver thread, when Jing Yinyan's long sword was being restrained. Suddenly, a streak of blood was drawn on her shoulder. Fresh blood gushed out and instantly dyed her plain robe red. Jing Yinyan felt the pain, and her sword moves became increasingly fierce. Under the rage, her profound energy surged and surged in this instant. Under the surge, it shook off the restraining silver thread. The next moment, Jing Yinyan charged towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. However, Jing Yinyan's long sword was just about to approach. Yi Qing Luo's figure suddenly disappeared into the air. Jing Yinyan's long sword paused and released her perception as she scanned the surroundings vigilantly. Giggle, giggle. A burst of sweet and clear laughter was heard leisurely. Jing Yinyan immediately turned around and looked towards the direction of the sound. She saw Yi Qing Luo standing at a place at least 20 steps away from her, smiling charmingly. I have always been a vengeful person. Even if you hurt me, I have to pay it back. She took out a handkerchief with her slender fingers and gently wiped away the blood that had seeped out from her shoulder. The expression on her face was calm and enchanting. Jing Yinyan tightened her grip on the brilliant light sword. This woman was really amazing. Just like what she said, she was a vengeful person. If she couldn't kill her today, then she would definitely take revenge for today's hatred. Jing Yinyan's eyes were piercingly cold, bursting out a strong, murderous intent. What a vengeful person. I want to see what kind of life you still have. Vengeful person. Jing Yinyan was already full of energy. Her own profound energy also erupted to the extreme. The brilliant light sword in her hand, the sword moves, became more and more aggressive. Every move and every style like a surging wave. The surrounding air seemed to be affected by the profound energy as it formed a distorted vortex of nothingness. This time, Yi Qing Luo didn't dare to be too unrestrained. Jing Yinyan's profound grade was originally above her. Moreover, the current her without the tranquil pearl had no way to forcibly raise her profound grade to compete with her. After a few more moves, Yi Qing Luo could only rely on her own footwork to avoid Jing Yinyan's attack. Moreover, every time she dodged, she had to change the angle. After a long time, Yi Qing Luo also felt that it was rather strenuous. Jing Yinyan's eyes lit up, and the attacks in her hands increased explosively in an instant. Seeing Jing Yinyan's sword aura slashing toward him again, Yi Qing Luo had no way to resist against such a powerful force. He could only use his footwork to quickly move away. She gathered her spirit and sensed the changes in the air around her vigilantly. Then he moved and stood behind Jing Yinyan in an instant. She gripped the glowing flame fan tightly and decisively moved it towards Jing Yinyan's neck. It was also at this moment. The gourd flame fan was only half a palm away from Jing Yinyan. Jing Yinyan suddenly regained her senses as she raised her palm and struck Yi Qing Luo's chest. Then, a powerful sword aura came crashing down. Yi Qing Luo felt a sharp pain in her chest as her body was forced to fly out. When Xiao Chen managed to stabilize his footing with much difficulty, countless swords followed closely behind. Damn it! This Jing Yinyan actually saw through her footwork once again. Yi Qing Luo's expression was grave. Her half-squinted eyes reflected a cold glint. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo had no time to use her footwork to escape. The speed of the sword shadows was extremely fast, giving her no chance to react. Yi Qing Luo, run. Aren't you very good at running? Jing Yinyan sneered and ridiculed. From what she thought, Yi Qing Luo was definitely going to die under her sword move. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo's mental power was concentrated on the sword shadows star. Chapter 1981. Since he couldn't hide, he could only face it head-on. Her strength was indeed inferior to Jing Yinyan's. If he were to forcefully resist these sword shadows, even if he did not die, he would be crippled. This was probably what Jing Yinyan was planning. But what Jing Yinyan did not know, she still had her golden finger. She could even cheat. Yiqing Luo narrowed her long and narrow eyes as her lips curled into a cold arc, which was extremely bewitching and flirtatious. In that instant, Yi Shiwen's expression changed. Her fingers quickly stroked the azure water divine weapon on her fingertips. Her fingertips curled into a thin red line, and she quickly covered her neck with it. When the dark force was injected into the divine weapon, Yiqing Luo only felt her petite body trembling violently. A horrifying power instantly eroded her body and mind. It was as if something was slowly penetrating and spreading through her limbs and bones. Bang! A powerful ray of profound light shot out from her body. It collided heavily with the hard attack that was coming at it head-on. They had just collided. That sword shadow instantly vanished into thin air. Jing Yinyan's proud smile froze on her face. What replaced it was disbelief and shock, as well as panic and shock. Because after defeating the sword shadow, the profound light shot towards Jing Yinyan like lightning. Whereas at this moment, Yiqing Luo's eyes were still shut, as though she didn't know what was happening in front of her. The azure water ring on his fingertip emitted a scorching heat. The azure aqua silk chain around his neck emitted a scorching heat. The two forces were constantly crossing each other. Yiqing Luo could clearly sense the two forces colliding within her body. The earth quaked and the mountains swayed, and the altar beneath their feet actually shattered. The heaven and earth's spiritual qi seemed to be lingering around Yiqing Luo's body, revolving continuously. That's a divine artifact. It's actually a divine artifact. Among the people fighting below, someone let out a cry of surprise. This voice made Yiqing Luo abruptly open her eyes. A powerful red, profound light engulfed her entire body. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared once more. But Yiqing Luo's majestic, imposing manner remained on her. She squinted her eyes and looked in the direction of the surprised roar. Unknowingly, the situation of the two armies that were fighting had turned around. It turned out that the various forces in the West Continent, which were previously controlled by Yiqing, Qian, and Yiqing, had all brought their own forces and rushed over, joining in the battle to protect the West Continent. Because of this, those various powerhouses could tell at one glance that the red, profound glow emitting from Yiqing Luo's fingertip was the god relic, which Yiqing Luo had obtained that day in King Ling's tomb. Divine weapon. When Jing Yinyan heard that, she covered the injury which was struck by that profound ray earlier, as she stared gloomily at Yiqing Luo. Despicable. To actually use the power of a divine artifact. No wonder Yiqing Luo was able to defeat her sword moves. No wonder Yiqing Luo's imposing manner had taken a qualitative leap in an instant. That was the power of a divine artifact. Jing Yinyan's eyes revealed greed. This divine artifact should belong to her. Yiqing Luo's gaze had already fallen on a Jing Yinyan and naturally did not miss that smear of greed in her eyes. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched slightly. Did she think that a godly weapon was something that anyone could possess? She wants to get a divine artifact? The arc on Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a sliver of ridicule. She leapt up and floated in mid-air. Her skirt fluttered, as though it was a blazing flame. Her arm lifted up slightly, and the glower flame fan opened up on her fingertips. Chapter 1982. That clear voice in Jing Yinyan's ears was like an ice blade, piercing her eardrums. Jing Yinyan staggered back a few steps, her eyes staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Her heart tightened into a ball. The young lady floated in mid-air, a head of fine hair scattered on her shoulders, swaying with the wind. She was like a fairy from the ninth heaven, shrouded in dazzling brilliance, looking down on all living beings. Every smile and frown seemed to be brilliant, making one unable to blaspheme. That was the power of a divine relic. Jing Yinyan was filled with shock. Yiqing Luo looked down at Jing Yinyan, seeing the greed and fear in her eyes. Her lips curled into a sweet smile. Those who offend me, I will kill them at the ends of the earth. She threw the glower flame fan into the air. The glower flame fan rotated rapidly in mid-air, and suddenly opened up. Like a ball of tiny flame, with a whoosh, it burned into a raging flame. Yi-Ching Luo's figure swayed, her slender white hand raised up, steadily catching the glower flame fan. Soon after, a wind blade that was like thousands of giant waves was fiercely slashed out. Yi-Ching Luo's body was also surrounded by a circle of vortex qi, one circle after another, incomparably powerful, and all the other auras in the surroundings were isolated. Jing Yinyan quickly wielded her long sword, stirring up numerous waves. The sword momentum was fierce, not willing to fall behind, facing the wind blade released by Yi-Ching Luo, slashing down horizontally. Immediately, her sword move changed. She was already close to Yi-Ching Luo. The long sword pointed straight at Yi-Ching Luo's eyebrows. Yi-Ching Luo's lips revealed a smirk of evil cold arc, slightly squinted long eyes, flashing with an interesting luster. She didn't dodge, but stared fixedly at the long sword pointing at her eyebrows, without blinking. Yi-Ching Luo's confidence made Jing Yinyan's heart, unknowingly, rise up a sense of fear. The long sword that was brandished also lost some of its momentum. This couldn't be another new trick of Yi-Ching Luo's? Jing Yinyan originally had absolute confidence. Her sword momentum, Yi-Ching Luo absolutely had no way to avoid and could only choose to forcibly resist. And she was also prepared to make a move on Yi-Ching Luo while Yi-Ching Luo was resisting. No matter what, he could not allow Yi-Ching Luo to use the power of the divine relic. Otherwise, she would definitely be no match for a divine artifact. But Yi-Ching Luo's complacent look really made Jing Yinyan's heart beat like a drum. Jing Yinyan looked at Yi-Ching Luo suspiciously, trying to find a clue from her expression. But when Jing Yinyan met with Yi-Ching Luo's ridiculing gaze, his heart exploded like a volcano erupting. Jing Yinyan's gaze turned cold. Her wrist moved, and she gripped the bright light sword tightly. "You're deliberately mystifying things to scare me?" She scoffed coldly, her gaze sharp as a blade. "I've never been afraid of anything. A little girl like you wants to scare this sect leader?" As she spoke, Jing Yinyan's own profound strength soared extremely violently. It was as if he had gathered all his dark force on the sword. The vast and boundless sword force was like a hot knife cutting through butter, directly charging towards Yi-Ching Luo's glabella, stabbing towards it forcefully. The surrounding commoners had been paying attention to the battle in the field. When they saw Yi-Ching Luo about to be stabbed by Jing Yinyan's long sword, they all cried out in shock. There were quite a number of commoners who were anxious to rush up the stage to help Yi-Ching Luo block this sword. However, then, a scene that astonished everyone happened. Just as the bright light sword was about a fist distance away from Yi-Ching Luo's glabella, suddenly, bright light sword's strong charge seemed to have met with some obstruction as it came to a halt. Star. Chapter 1983. Jing Yinyan's expression congealed. She clenched her teeth and used all her strength to stab forward. But there seemed to be a membrane in the air. No matter how hard Jing Yinyan tried, the scenic light sword didn't budge at all. It couldn't get close to Yi-Ching Luo at all. How was that possible? Yi-Ching Luo's surroundings didn't have any enchantment. So how could the scenic light sword not hurt her? Jing Yinyan's eyes were filled with astonishment as she couldn't figure it out. Yi-Ching Luo was all smiles, her eyes curved as she looked at Jing Yinyan, who was close at hand, Sect Master Shijing. "It's a good thing not to be afraid this way. It's interesting when I play with my prey, isn't it?" "No, impossible. What sorcery did you use?" Jing Yinyan's chest heaved up and down violently. When she met Yi-Ching Luo's smiling eyes, she instinctively wanted to retreat. But Jing Yinyan's hand, which was holding the long sword, had yet to withdraw. Suddenly, she saw Yi-Ching Luo's body shooting out a ray of red light. Like an avalanche, it rushed towards the scenic light sword which was pointed between her eyebrows. "Gotcha!" There was a crisp sound of something breaking. The scenic light sword in Jing Yinyan's hand broke into two. The broken blade fell down, landing on the ruins of the gravel. Jing Yinyan's pupils suddenly constricted. Her eyes stared unblinkingly at the sword in her hand, which was left with half a long sword. Her petite body was trembling slightly. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Broken. Her scenic light sword broke. 10 scenery sect treasure broken. This was the inherited sword of every sect master of 10 scenery sect. Today, it was broken in her hands. No, impossible. How could the sect treasure be broken? This must be Yi Qing Luo's sorcery. Jing Yinyan's eyes immediately turned red. She stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. Her murderous intent burst out. Slut, it's you. It's your sorcery. Try to deceive my eyes. Quickly hand over the scenic light sword. Hand over the scenic light sword. Her hand, which was holding the scenic light sword, kept trembling. Her entire body stiffened, showing a state of madness. How could the sect treasure of 10 scenery sect be broken? Even if it was a divine weapon, it wouldn't be broken. There was no way it would break. Jing Yinyan fiercely pounced towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Her sharp shriek was extremely ear-piercing. Slut, hand over the bright light sword. Hand it over. However, before Jing Yinyan could get close, an invisible stream of air bounced her off the ground. Jing Yinyan tumbled down from the air and landed on the ground. That was profound energy. The flow of profound qi encircled Yi Qing Luo's body. It formed a protective shield for Yi Qing Luo. Earlier, Scenic Light Sword was unable to get close to Yi Qing Luo because it was obstructed by this protective shield. She was just a 15-year-old girl. How could she possibly possess such a powerful flow of profound energy? Even if he borrowed the power of a divine artifact. Even so, it was impossible to raise her profound rank. Jing Yinyan's eyes were filled with terror as she stared unblinkingly at Yi Qing Luo's smiling face. Wait a minute, Mystic Class. Yes, Mystic Class. From the beginning to the end, she had not been able to see through Yi Qing Luo's profound grade. The thoughts he got from Yi Qing Qian. Jing Yinyan had always thought that Yi Qing Luo was at most Earth profound 5th grade. And the reason why Yi Qing Luo was able to exchange so many blows with her was because she had many magical weapons. The Overlord gifted her the Glower Flame Fan, and Yi Qing Luo herself was an alchemist, and so on. But she had never thought deeply about what level Yi Qing Luo's profound grade was at. Chapter 1984. As the sect master of 10 Views, she had the best resources since childhood. At the age of 60, she had finally stepped into the Sky Mystic realm and became a Sky Mystic Supremacy. Because she was a Sky Mystic Supremacy. For many years, no one dared to find trouble with 10 Views, and it had been sitting steadily on the throne of the #1 sect. But now, she had suffered such a big loss in the hands of a 15-year-old girl. How could this girl be an Earth Mystic 5th grade cultivator? Could it be that Yi Qing Luo was also a Sky Mystic Supremacy? No, absolutely impossible. A 15-year-old Sky Mystic Supremacy? Who would believe it? Even the Overlord couldn't possibly reach the Sky Mystic realm at the age of 15, right? Jing Yinyan couldn't believe it as she propped herself up on the ground and stared at the girl in midair. She would rather believe that the reason why Yi Qing Luo could possess such great power was because of the divine weapon. She absolutely wouldn't believe that Yi Qing Luo was a Sky Mystic Supremacy. Sect Master 10 Views. The brilliant light sword has been broken. If you still insist on going about things the wrong way, don't blame me for not knowing how to respect the elderly. Yi Qing Luo raised her pink lips under the glow of the Glower Flame Fan. Her charming eyes were covered with a layer of fiery red glow, adding some flirtatious and bewitching charm to her stunning looks. Elderly. These 3 words stung Jing Yinyan's ears. Which woman didn't want to be talked about the problem of appearance and age? Even Jing Yinyan, who had always dressed like a Taoist nun, attached great importance to her appearance. Otherwise, she wouldn't have specially used profound energy to maintain her appearance as a 30 or 40-year-old woman. If it wasn't because she was the sect master, she had to be older in order to convince the masses. Otherwise, Jing Yinyin would definitely maintain her appearance as a 17 or 18-year-old. Arrogant, silly girl. Don't you dare be arrogant. Jing Yinyin clenched her teeth as she gripped the sword hilt in her hand and attacked Yiqing Luo relentlessly. The broken, brilliant light sword was like a dead object. No matter how Jing Yinyin released her profound energy, the brilliant light sword had no reaction at all. Jing Yinyin's fingers clenched tightly as her red eyes stared at the sword hilt in her hand. Even now, she still could not accept it. Her scenic light sword had really been broken by Yiqing Luo's profound qi airflow. Jing Yinyin no longer had any thoughts to attack Yiqing Luo. Hugging half of the scenic light sword, she half-knelt on the ground and let out a heart-wrenching roar. The scenic light sword represented the lifeline of the 10 sceneries. Now that the scenic light sword had been destroyed, she had become the center of the 10 sceneries. How could Jing Yinyin's heart calm down? Girl, take advantage of this opportunity to take down the 10 scenery, sect master. Old man Song transmitted his thoughts in his mind. Yiqing Luo half squinted her eyes as she gazed at the woman who was howling hoarsely. Her eyes were as calm as still water. As for Jing Yinyin's heart-wrenching, he did not feel anything at all. Hearing old man Song's words, her eyelashes fluttered. You still haven't obtained the calming bead. The power of the divine artifact won't be able to last for too long. You have to end this quickly. Old man Song saw that Yiqing Luo still had no reaction as he advised in a deep voice. After dealing with the 10 scenery sect master, you still have to deal with the dark forces, so don't waste your energy in vain. Yiqing Luo nodded slightly. I know. Yes, she couldn't sustain the power of the divine artifact for too long. Because of this, the profound jade heart would faintly riot. If it wasn't for the jade pendant which DMO Xian found for her, which suppressed the agitation of the profound jade heart, she would probably have been devoured by the profound jade heart by now. Star. Chapter 1985. The only way to deal with Jing Yinyin was to start with the scenic light sword. Because of this, Yiqing Luo exhausted the power of the divine relic and broke the scenic light sword. Exhausting the power of the divine relic was equivalent to exhausting Yiqing Luo's own profound energy. Breaking the scenic light sword almost exhausted half of Yiqing Luo's power. The current Yiqing Luo, with the power of the divine relic, could not hold on for too long. If she did not end the battle quickly, the pendant on her neck would forcibly suppress the power of her profound jade heart. Once the power of the profound jade heart was suppressed, the power of the divine relic would also diminish. Before this, what she needed to do was not only to settle Jing Yinyin, but also the dark forces. She must win this battle. Otherwise, the West Continent would be destroyed. Three Springs Sect would also completely become a traitor party. Three Springs Sect was Yi Fengyu's. She had promised Yi Fengyu that she would hand the Three Springs Sect over to him. She must not destroy Three Springs Sect. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. Powerful, profound energy lingered around her body. Streams of air turned into a huge whirlpool, as if it could swallow everything in the world. Sect Master Shijing, take your laughable scenic light sword and scram back to Shijing Sect. Yiqing Luo reprimanded and immediately opened the glower flame fan, spewing out a thick and majestic profound qi. The profound qi in midair turned into a light arc. In a split second, the surrounding air seemed to distort. A wave overshadowed the sound, shaking the heavens and earth. The entire West Billow Square was plunged into the quaking of the earth and mountains. This was the power of the divine relic. This kind of terrifying and majestic profound qi. This kind of profound qi was enough to shock people. This was the power of the divine relic. Too terrifying, even if it was separated by the barrier of the Mu family. All of them could clearly feel the surging waves of air that came one after another. The entire square, both armies, were shocked by the profound qi that Yi Qing Luo released at this moment. Jing Yanyan was still half kneeling on the ground, hearing Yi Qing Luo's insolent rebuke. Her brows suddenly turned fierce, clenching her fists tightly. Her heart was filled with hatred towards Yi Qing Luo. However, the hatred in her eyes had just covered her eyes. A powerful, profound qi whizzed over. Jing Yanyan's pupils constricted, and she wanted to retreat. But her reaction was already too late. Bang! Majestic, profound qi fell. The entire ground cracked into rubble and flew in all directions. Dust billowed, and everything was filled with a bloodthirsty and cold aura. Dead. Miss Yi, sect leader Shijing, she's dead. Right? I knew Miss Yi was the best. Long live Miss Yi. Long live Miss Yi. When the onlookers saw this, a look of joy appeared on their faces. As long as Yi Qing Luo settled, the 10 scenic sect master, the underground forces would lose a capable assistant. Yi Qing Luo then joined the royal army. The dark forces would not be able to fight back. Just as everyone seemed to have seen a ray of hope, Yi Qing Luo squinted her charming eyes as she fixed her gaze on the direction where the smoke and dust were curling upwards. She frowned, her voice cold. Yi Fengru? My good second brother, could it be that because of your love for Zi Qianqian, you have already fallen in love with this old woman? Everyone was taken aback. Following that, their eyes widened as they looked at that patch of smoke in disbelief. The smoke slowly dispersed, only to see Jing Yanyan lying on the ground, covered in blood. Blood had dyed her plain-colored long robe red, and below her was a river of blood. But Jing Yanyan was not dead yet. Her expression was sinister, as her features were distorted due to the pain. Standing in front of Jing Yanyan, the refined man holding the long sword had one hand behind his back, while the other was pointing towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Star. Chapter 1986. The man's sleeves fluttered. His white long robe was not stained by the blood rain. His expression was calm, as gentle as jade. His elegance was just like his name. There wasn't any sense of incompatibility. His black and white eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. His voice was calm. Seventh sister, as a member of the Three Springs sect, you should advance and retreat together with the Three Springs sect. But today, because of your own ambition, you went against the Three Springs sect. Not only did you become a traitor of the Three Springs sect, you even assisted the rebels to seize the imperial power. You have thrown the Three Springs sect's face. He enunciated each word with great force. His tone was filled with deep regret. Yi Qing Luo was about to laugh at his shamelessness. This was the first time she saw Yi Fengru spouting nonsense in a serious manner. It was a novelty. She giggled as her eyes were filled with ridicule. Second brother's ability to lie through your teeth is really strong. The commoners were filled with righteous indignation as they echoed Yi Qing Luo's words. Did he need to be so shameless? Didn't he want his face anymore? And the traitor of Three Springs sect? And the traitor? And throwing the Three Springs sect's face? You're obviously the one who threw the Three Springs sect's face, and even tarnished Three Springs sect reputation as one of the 4 major sects. The real traitor was this so-called second young master of Three Springs sect. The real traitor was this so-called second young master of Three Springs sect. Was he bullying them for not being educated? Even if they hadn't been educated, they still understood the most basic etiquette and shame. Yi Fengru's long sword moved as he stared at Yi Qing Luo and struck directly. Seventh sister, since you're so stubborn, then I can only put justice before family. His sword moves were not like Jing Yanyan's. His sword moves were without any fancy moves, completely aimed at the vital points. This kind of attack was fast and accurate. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't have the ability to react at all. But to Yi Qing Luo, these sword moves were nothing. But Yi Qing Luo was still rather surprised. Yi Fengru was not only a grandmaster alchemist, his sword skills were not bad. His Xian grade had also improved since the last time they fought in the Ling King tomb. Very few people could concoct medicine and cultivate at the same time. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo caught a glimpse of a strange glint flashing past his eyes. Yiqing Luo's heart shuddered as she immediately withdrew her hand and retracted her profound qi. Her footwork expanded and her figure disappeared in midair. Yi Fengru's long sword slashed down. Visible to the naked eye, a mass of white powder drifted in the air. Yi Fengru's expression froze, and his warm expression disappeared. He furrowed his brows and looked around vigilantly. Second brother is still as sinister as ever. You still want to take the opportunity to poison me? Have you forgotten the lesson from last time? Yiqing Luo's sweet laughter was heard coming from his back. Yi Fengru was startled. He immediately turned his head and retreated. Fixing his eyes on her, he saw Yiqing Luo standing not too far away from him with a face full of smiles, as her smile was filled with ridicule. Yi Fengru gripped his long sword tightly as he watched the poison powder he had painstakingly refined scatter in the wind. The rage in his eyes started to burn wantonly. Yiqing Luo's reaction was actually that fast. She actually managed to evade it before he used the poison. How could she have guessed his next move? Recalling the last time, in the Ling King tomb, he had tried to poison Yiqing Luo repeatedly. But Yiqing Luo easily evaded it, whereas he had suffered Yiqing Luo's poison powder. That heart-wrenching pain, he absolutely wasn't willing to suffer it a second time. Star. Chapter 1987. Yiqing Luo had a panoramic view of Yi Fengru's expression. Her lips curled upwards, and her smile became even more radiant. Second brother, do you know that there's always someone better out there? As a dark alchemist, your skill in alchemy is constantly improving, but even though I'm wholeheartedly cultivating my profound grade, I've never neglected alchemy. Looking at Yi Fengru's pale face as he took a few steps back, Yiqing Luo's curved brows looked extremely demonic. Yi Fengru relied on his identity as a dark alchemist. He wanted to take back the pain he had suffered the last time in the Ling King's tomb, but he neglected it. He wasn't the only one who had improved. Yi Fengru's fingers turned white as he gripped his sword tightly. His gloomy eyes were filled with an eerie chill. Yiqing Luo, your arrogance will make you die a tragic death sooner or later. He flipped the long sword. His eyes were cold as he waved the long sword again. Profound qi burst out. Yiqing Luo shook her head with a chuckle as she easily raised her glower flame fan to block that sword. Second brother, you're too weak. I really don't want to waste time with you. She clicked her tongue as her vision went past Yi Fengru and landed somewhere. Immediately, the smile on her lips became even more scornful. But second brother, don't worry. You won't be too lonely. Her words had just ended when Yiqing Luo had already flown up and retreated a long distance backwards. Yi Fengru had used all his strength to slash towards Yiqing Luo. While contending against Yiqing Luo's glower flame fan, he had used up all his strength. And Yiqing Luo's sudden retreat. This caused Yi Fengru's body to become unsteady. His entire body staggered forward a few steps and then heavily fell on his face. Yi Fengru's expression instantly turned gloomy. He climbed up from the ground and wanted to attack Yiqing Luo again. But the moment he turned around, his footsteps stopped. Behind him was a group of about 1,000 people dressed in blue mercenary group uniforms. Their bodies, front and back, were embroidered with an extremely conspicuous skill word with golden thread. Death God Mercenary Group. On the Mercenary Group Honor Roll, ranked third in the Gold Medal Mercenary Group Guild. The leader of the group was delicate and handsome, but he did not lose his dignity. He was the leader of Death God Mercenary Group, Nangong Firen. Firen, Yi Fengru's hand that was holding the long sword paused as he stared at Nangong Firen without blinking. Ru, how could you walk this path? Nangong Firen's face was filled with pain, and his voice was extremely hoarse. A small head popped out from behind him. Nangong Lin, looked at Yi Fengru timidly and pursed her red lips. Big brother Ru, why did you abandon the Killing God Mercenary Group? Facing the brothers who had fought together with him, facing the brothers who had gone through thick and thin with him. The expression on Yi Fengru's face gradually loosened. Why? His thin lips trembled as he gently spat out 3 words. Suddenly, he chuckled softly. You asked me why. Nangong Firen frowned and slowly closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she exhaled and said, You did it for Qianqian, didn't you? At the mention of Qianqian's name, Yi Fengru's body trembled slightly. His gloomy eyes flashed with traces of madness and a faint wry smile. It's you who abandoned Qianqian. It's you who abandoned us. Qianqian colluded with the dark forces and attempted to destroy the entire Nirvana realm. She deserved to die. Nangong Firen's voice was cold as he said word by word. As the executive leader of the Death God mercenary group, you colluded with the dark forces and attempted to destroy the West Continent on behalf of the Three Springs sect. Do you really think that you only represent the Three Springs sect? Where do you put the Death God mercenary group and the brothers who have gone through thick and thin with you? Star. Chapter 1988. Yi Fengru was stunned as his eyes were in a trance. His gloomy eyes revealed endless hesitation. Yi Fengru, don't forget what you've promised me. As long as you succeed, I will try my best to fulfill your conditions. Just at this moment, Wolf St. Art's voice was heard. Yi Fengru raised his head as his body swayed slightly as he stared at Wolf St. Art in a daze, looking helpless, as though he had not regained his senses from Nangong Firen's provocation. Ru, Azura is very pained towards Qianqian's death. I know you like Qianqian, but she's already dead. What you need to do is to look forward. Nangong Firen saw this and immediately increased his tone as he advised. Don't continue to make mistakes. You still have Azura and us brothers. Before Nangong Firen could finish his words, Wolf St. Art bellowed angrily again. Yi Fengru, think carefully about what you want the most. Want? Yi Fengru suddenly raised his head as a gloomy glint flashed past his eyes. He held the long sword in his hand tightly. I only want Qianqian alone forever. Qianqian died in Yi Qing Luo's hands, so no matter what, I must kill Yi Qing Luo to take revenge for Qianqian. His voice turned cold like ice. Nangong Firen, if you insist on stopping me, then don't blame me for not caring about our brotherhood. Brother. Nangong Lin hugged Nangong Firen's arm. Her eyes were glistening with tears as she stared at Yi Fengru in a daze. Linner, be good and move aside. You can't mess around here. Nangong Firen knew his sister's intention. He forcefully pried Nangong Lin's hand away. I've given him a chance. Since he's willing to abandon his brothers for a woman, I have nothing to say. Linner, there are thousands of men in this world. I will find you a man who is better than him. Nangong Lin pursed her red lips tightly as her eyes filled with tears. She knew that everything her brother did was for the sake of the overall situation and for her. She knew that Yi Fengru had never liked her from the start and only treated her like a sister on account of Nangong Firen. But she liked Yi Fengru. She didn't want to see her brother and brother Ru kill each other. Bailai, Nangong Firen shouted. Wei Bailey's expression was unfathomable. When Nangong Firen shouted for the second time, he walked out and grabbed Nangong Lin's wrist. Look after Lin. I'll stop the gnome. The other brothers protect the West Wave continent. As soon as Nangong Firen gave the order, he flew forward and engaged Yi Fengru. Brother Ru. No matter how unwilling Nangong Lin was, she was still dragged to the back of the crowd by Wei Bailai. The mercenaries of the Death God mercenary troop received the order and immediately charged in the direction of the Dark Coalition. Move aside, Nangong Firen. I don't want to fight you today. Seeing that Yi Qing Luo's figure had already dashed towards the battlefield, Yi Fengru gritted his teeth and wanted to chase up to her. However, in the next moment, Nangong Firen had already closed in on him. Nangong Firen's face was calm. He didn't use any weapons. He was barehanded and only wanted to trap Yi Fengru. Yi Fengru's target was to stop Yi Qing Luo from joining the battle. In that case, his target was to stop Yi Fengru from making mistakes again and again. Chapter 1989. That's stupid. Jing Yinyin, who was lying on the ground, unable to move, sneered at Yi Qing Luo's actions. Just like that, they attacked the place where the two armies were fighting without any hesitation. Wasn't she afraid of hurting her own army? Did Yi Qing Luo really thought she was heaven-defying? She could control her own profound energy and had her own consciousness, not attacking the royal army. However, at the next moment, Jing Yinyin spat out a mouthful of blood in shock, only to see the sky, full of airflow, turning into several sharp wind blades. Wherever the wind blades went, the dark forces and 10 scenery sect disciples were all slashed into several pieces by the wind blades. Whereas, the direction of the wind blades, coincidentally, it evaded the royal army completely. It didn't hurt the royal army at all. This scene made Wolf Saint Fa's brows crease tightly. Wolf Saint Fa, what should we do? With Yi Qing Luo, that little slut, making a move, together with those two sacred beasts, we won't be able to last more than 1 hour. After Butterfly Saint Fa evaded Yi Qing Luo's wind blades, she flew towards Wolf Saint Fa's direction. She seductively wiped off the bloodstains on her face filled with displeasure. Their Saint Fa had always been high and mighty. There was no need for them to do anything themselves. Today, everything was listening to Wolf Saint Fa's orders. 3 Saint Fa and 4 pharaohs all joined the battle. But Wolf Saint Fa just stood by the side and watched. If it wasn't for the fact that Wolf Saint Fa had an absolute trump card in his hands, they couldn't be bothered to take this vexation. Wolf Saint Fa glanced at Butterfly Saint Fa sinisterly and sneered. What's the hurry? Just drag the time. No matter what, we will definitely win this battle. Looking at Wolf Saint Fa's confident look, Butterfly Saint Fa was filled with curiosity. Wolf Saint Fa, what are you trying to hide? It's already so urgent. Can't you just say it out and boost everyone's morale? You don't believe in this Saint Fa? Wolf Saint Fa's tone sunk, as though he was impatient. Butterfly Saint Fa pursed her lips as a sliver of unresigned anger flashed past her eyes. But very quickly, she suppressed that anger and revealed a smile. Why wouldn't I believe you? If I don't believe you, why would we be charging forward here? Then cut the crap. Wolf Saint Law gave a cold snort, without the slightest bit of tenderness towards the fairer sex. Those trash are unable to hold Yi Qing Luo back. The few of you, think of a way to hold her back. Otherwise, everything will be for naught. The Butterfly Saint technique clenched her fists. Since they had already come this far, they could only cling to the last straw of hope. Otherwise, in today's battle, even if they escaped from the Nirvana realm, they were afraid that even if they hurt Yi Qing Luo, they would not be able to escape the pursuit of the Overlord. Now that things had come to this, he could only believe in the Wolf Saint technique. The Butterfly Saint technique joined the battle once again as it headed straight towards the target, Yi Qing Luo's direction. Pharaoh Crane had been paying attention to the whereabouts of the Butterfly sacred technique. When he saw her coming over, he immediately flashed to her side. What did that wolf say to you? Butterfly Saint technique. Delay Yi Qing Luo. Otherwise, all previous efforts will be wasted. Pharaoh Crane. He still hasn't said what his trump card is. Based on the current situation, who can control Yi Qing Luo? They had all crossed hands with Yi Qing Luo. Towards Yi Qing Luo's ability, they were clearer than anyone else. If they fought head-on, they might even lose their lives. Look at Yi Qing Qian. Then look at Sect Master Shijing. Sect Master Shijing and Yi Feng Ru were specially used by the Wolf Saint technique to hold Yi Qing Luo back. But they had all failed. They held Yi Qing Luo back? What were they going to use to hold her back? Especially now, Yi Qing Luo, who was using the power of the God Relic. He was simply unrivaled. Star. Chapter 1990. Butterfly Saint Technique's expression was gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Qian, who was in a pool of blood and flesh behind the Wolf Saint Technique. If it wasn't for that woman acting on her own, we wouldn't need to waste so much effort to delay Yi Qing Luo. Originally, Wolf Saint Law had already decided on a plan. But Yi Qing Qian, that woman, thought that she could cover the sky with one hand. Why must he go against Yi Qing Luo? Now, not only did he cause himself to suffer unspeakably, they even had to pay with their lives. Before they were tortured to death by Yi Qing Luo, Wolf Saint Technique had yet to reveal his trump card. What was the use of stalling for time? Pharaoh He and the Wolf Saint Mage were never on good terms. He especially loathed the useless women that the Wolf Saint Technique had brought back, although that woman had the exact same appearance as the former Fox Saint Law. However, his temperament and strength were two extremes. Only the Wolf Saint Technique, who was infatuated with the Fox Saint Technique, would treat this similar-looking Yi Qing Qian as a treasure in the palm of his hand. Now, because of Yi Qing Qian, the strength of the dark forces was greatly reduced. What's more, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to delay the Wolf Saint Law from taking out his trump card. How could they not be resentful? How could they not be angry? If not for the fact that they could only rely on the so-called trump card of the Wolf Saint Technique. They would absolutely disregard the Wolf Saint Technique and strangle Yi Qing Qian to death. After Yi Qing Luo joined the battle, not only did it lessen the pressure on the royal army, it also boosted the morale of the royal army. Each and every one of them had an insane fighting prowess, especially with the addition of the Death God mercenary group and other forces. The dark forces were gradually losing strength, and their combat power was getting lower and lower. Moreover, towards Yi Qing Luo, the dark forces had already developed an instinctive fear towards her. One had to know that this young lady was the one who had sealed the consciousness of their king of darkness. Kill these traitors. You are the kings of the Western continent. It contains our dark forces' holy techniques and dark secret arts. What was there to be afraid of? Kill! Kill! The wolf's sacred eye roared furiously when it saw that the morale of the dark faction was dropping. You have the noble bloodline of the dark forces. What pressure do you have to deal with these lowly humans from the mortal world? What did a 15-year-old girl have to fear? If one wasn't enough, then two would go. If two didn't work, then three. No matter how powerful she is, she can't fight against four people. In your Three Springs sect, you are one of the four major sections. Could it be that you can't even deal with the traitors of your own sect? What use do the Three Springs sect have for you? Look at your sect master. He's fighting for the Three Springs sect's peace. How long are you going to be afraid? The Wolf Saint Technique enunciated each and every word clearly and sonorously. His dignified tone ignited the fighting spirit of the dark forces and other forces that were afraid of him once again. The Wolf Saint Dharma continued. Don't forget, from the moment you stepped onto this path, you have no way out. You can only fight with your lives on the line. Kill all these traitors and rebels. The dark forces had already joined the dark forces in the Western continent, and at this time, they had no choice but to be on high alert to deal with the attack of the Imperial Army. Indeed, they had no way out. Once they did, they would lose to the Royal Army. In the annals of history, they would be labeled as rebels and traitors instead. They could not afford to lose this battle. Chapter 1991. That might not be the case. There's always a way out. Yi Qing Luo's sweet laughter reverberated in the air, which was filled with killing intent. The young lady suddenly left the battlefield and stood in the air. A captivating red long dress fluttered in the wind, like a blazing flame. Her red lips rose slightly as she looked down at the two armies who were fighting below. The entire Westlake Square had long been dyed red with blood, and corpses littered the ground. She gradually concealed the smile in her eyes as her expression turned solemn. Her solemn voice floated in the air. All of you from Three Springs sect were bewitched and instigated by scoundrels, and also listened to that unjustifiable sect master's orders, which was why you joined the dark forces, which allowed that unjustifiable person to attempt to make use of you, to clear his name as the sect master. And all of you knew that the dark forces were expelled by the Nirvana realm, but still endured the unwillingness in your hearts and chose to listen to the sect master's orders. That was enough to show your loyalty to Three Springs sect. Such loyal people are exactly the talents that Three Springs sect, need. Now, the legitimate young matriarch of Three Springs sect for 15 years, is back. All of you can think clearly. Is it the unjustifiable sect master who could even lay a hand on his own father to forcefully obtain the sect master's position, who you are loyal to? Or are you loyal to me, the publicly acknowledged young matriarch for the past 15 years? The people from Three Springs sect were stunned, as their hearts started to waver. No matter who it was, they could tell that Yi Fengru's position was unjustifiable. Yi Qingqian had obviously been chased out of Three Springs sect. But Yi Fengru and Yi Qingqian collaborated, and even introduced the dark forces into Three Springs sect. Three Springs sect had been in the Westlake continent for as long as 10,000 years. The people from Three Springs sect were born and bred in the Westlake continent. Towards the Westlake continent, they naturally had feelings. The invasion of the dark forces and the act of controlling the Westlake continent, wanting to invade the Westlake continent, had long made the people from Three Springs sect unhappy. Now, hearing Yi Qingluo's words, how could they not waver? No matter who it was, they would not bear to have their names recorded in the annals of history as traitors. Since ancient times, although it is said that the victor is the king and the loser is the thief, the truth of the matter can never be completely erased. In today's battlefield, everyone should be clearer than anyone else in your hearts. Who are the rebels and traitors? Who are the traitors and enemies who want to invade and destroy the Western continent? Yi Qingluo's voice was loud and clear. With the power of profound qi, it spread to the entire public square. This battle involves the survival of the Western continent. Do you want to see the West continent that you protect be invaded by a foreign force that has been expelled by the Nirvana realm and become a lackey of a foreign force? Do you want to see the Western continent plunge into an abyss of suffering and all the common people become food for the dark forces? Do you want to completely destroy the West Wave continent, destroy the home that belongs to us? Each voice was more impassioned than the last, one louder than the other. Not only the people from Three Springs sect were convinced by Yi Qingluo. Even the disciples of the other 10 scenery sects that had joined the dark forces were shaken. In the entire square, only the sounds of the dark forces fighting with the royal army could be heard. The other forces couldn't help but stop the attacks in their hands. They all raised their heads, looking at the young lady who was suspended in midair. She was obviously just a 15-year-old young lady, and, on the surface, she looked so slender as though she would be blown away by the wind. But the aura that was emitted from her body, and that majestic, imposing manner which made one submit to her, made one's heart feel solemn. Star. Chapter 1992. Everyone's heart was trembling. She was like a queen looking down on the world, leaving an indelible mark in the hearts of the crowd. That was right. Even if they weren't from the West Continent, they didn't attach much importance to the survival of the West Continent. But since ancient times, the winner was the king and the loser was the bandit. But the truth would never be buried. The truth that they were the real traitors would eventually be passed down to the future generations. What's more, the dark forces belonged to the dark forces. Would they really fulfill the promises they made? Once the dark forces invaded the West Continent, then wouldn't they have to take action against the other 3 continents? The West Continent was definitely not the lowest among the 4 continents, but it was easily controlled by the dark forces. Then, what about the other 3 continents? Thinking of this, not only Three Springs sect's people were shaken. 10 scenery's disciples and other small forces were shaken. Nonsense. Don't listen to that witch's nonsense. Yi Fengru's long sword slashed through Nangong Firen's obstruction as he charged forward, shouting at the top of his voice. At this moment, where was the slightest bit of elegance that he once had? Nangong Firen charged forward and tangled with Yi Fengru again. His blue mercenary uniform was stained with blood. It was obvious that Yi Fengru had never shown any mercy to him. However, Nangong Firen had not taken out his weapon from the start and had been entangling him with his bare fists. This scene fell into the Death God mercenary group's eyes, and it made them gradually develop a resistance towards Yi Fengru. Although Yi Fengru, as the executive leader, had managed the team very well, it was still not enough. And he had won the hearts of the members. But at this very moment, seeing Yi Fengru treating his own brother in such a manner for a woman who had colluded with the dark forces, even going against the Death God mercenary group, they couldn't understand such feelings at all, especially after hearing Yi Qing Luo's impassioned words. They couldn't understand Yi Fengru's actions. What's more, in order to cooperate with the dark forces, Yi Fengru was even ruthless to his own father. Clang! A sound of weapons clashing was heard. The Three Springs Sect's people threw down their weapons. With one person taking the lead, more and more people threw down their weapons. After careful consideration, he finally chose to pledge allegiance to Yi Qing Luo. They were not willing to cooperate with the dark forces. He also didn't want it to be passed down to the later generations and be cursed. Those who surrender will be killed without mercy. Lang Sheng Fa's expression was sinister. He had not expected Yi Qing Luo to be so good at inciting people's hearts. Yi Fengru, that trash. He couldn't even control his own men. It was just a few words, and it made Yi Qing Luo waver. The dark forces obeyed the order and quickly turned towards the Three Springs Sect's people who had dropped their weapons and lost their ability to fight. With us here, let's see how you're going to kill them. The Death God mercenary group held their weapons tightly and immediately stood in front of the Three Springs Sect people. Long Yunjian and Tong Ziqing also followed the sound and killed the dark forces that were charging at them one by one. Every one of the Three Springs Sect, this time, please pick up the weapons in your hands and protect our Western continent. Our Three Springs Sect. You will all be our Three Springs Sect's heroes. I represent the Three Springs Sect's young matriarch to promise everyone that after Three Springs Sect has settled down, you will all receive Three Springs Sect's medal. Chapter 1993. Yi Qing Luo's words deeply shook the hearts of those from Three Springs Sect. They succumbed to Yi Qing Luo's charisma, her ability, her aura, her dignified, and awe-inspiring boldness, all of which made the people from Three Springs Sect succumb to her. This time, the people from Three Springs Sect had at least lost 2/3 of their men. As for the remaining 1/3, they were Yi Fengru's only trusted aides after so many years in Three Springs Sect. The people from Three Springs Sect picked up their weapons once again. This time, they were protecting their homeland, to protect their West Continent, to protect the citizens of the West Continent. This time, they had nothing to fear. Whereas for the dark forces, because 2/3 of the people from Three Springs Sect had switched sides, their ability dropped drastically. Coupled with Yi Qing Luo's impassioned speech earlier, many of the small forces on the Dark World side were also affected. For example, the people from the Shangguan family were affected the most. In just a short moment, the Dark Forces' ability was reduced step by step. As time passed, they were suppressed by the royal army until they retreated step by step. As for the few holy techniques and pharaohs, they were worried that they would be tortured by Yi Qing Luo so that they would lose their lives. So naturally, they wouldn't risk their lives. Wolf Saint Technique was so angry that he kept shouting and cursing, pointing at the dark forces, warning them nonstop. However, the dark forces were still retreating step by step. Very soon, they had retreated to the boundary of the West Continent public square, converging towards Wolf Saint Technique's direction. The morale of the royal army was getting stronger and stronger. All of them pressed forward. Just at this moment, a flattering scream was heard from afar. Wolf Saint Technique, Wolf Saint Technique. Yin family is willing to help the dark forces. Yin family is willing to pledge allegiance to the dark forces. Then, a group of more than 1,000 people hurriedly ran over from afar. Those 1,000 people, in Wolf Saint Technique's eyes, were nothing, especially when the royal army's morale was soaring. It was just a drop in the bucket, but Yin family's goodwill Wolf Saint technique naturally wouldn't reject it. As long as he could delay Yi Qing Luo until he could reveal his trump card, it was enough. As for these insignificant people, even if they sacrificed their lives, it was their honor to sacrifice their lives for him. Wolf Saint Law, the future ruler of the Nirvana realm. Patriarch Yin led all the people of his family and went forward to welcome them. All right, good. Your choice is correct. As long as you can agree to this battle on my behalf, I will grant you a request. The wolf sacred technique spoke calmly, its attitude extremely lofty. However, Patriarch Yin was beaming with joy as he pushed the young girl beside him towards the wolf saint technique. The wolf saint technique is wise, and the wolf saint technique is mighty. This is my daughter who has admired the wolf saint technique for a long time. Today, my daughter wants to see the wolf saint technique. She wants me to bring my family to the wolf saint technique. The young girl was delicate and pretty. She looked no more than 14 or 15 years old, but she wore heavy makeup and deliberately put on a coy look. It really made the young girl's liveliness lose some color. The wolf saint technique didn't say a word, only raising his brows as he glanced sideways at the young girl who was pretending to be shy. This glance made Patriarch Yin even more excited as he took the opportunity to say, "If the wolf saint technique doesn't mind, after the battle ends, my daughter will stay by the wolf saint technique's side to serve you. What does the wolf saint technique think about it?" Wolf saint technique. My name is Yin Junfei. You can change to my Fei-er. Yin Junfei lowered her head shyly as she twisted her body and said in a tender voice, Fei-er has admired the wolf saint technique for a long time. I hope that the wolf saint technique can fulfill Fei-er's sincerity. Star. Chapter 1994. Wolf Saint Magic squinted his sinister eyes. He who was good at scheming naturally didn't miss the glint in the 14 to 15-year-old young lady's eyes. He laughed coldly in his heart, but on the surface, he revealed a humble expression. I'm indebted to Miss Yan's kindness. If Miss Yan doesn't mind following this old man, I'm naturally willing to leave a message for Miss to accompany me. Patriarch Yan's expression turned joyful as he hurriedly pushed Yin Junfei towards Wolf Saint Magic's direction. Yin Junfei's footsteps seemed to be unstable as she cried out and fell towards Wolf Saint Magic. Wolf Saint Magic immediately stretched out his arm and wrapped it around Yin Junfei's waist. For eyes met, everything was formed in a flash. Patriarch Yin was filled with joy as he hurriedly called out to his own forces to join the Dark Forces army and start the battle. This was the Yin family's only chance to climb up, pushing the daughter whom he had doted on for over 10 years over. Patriarch Yin was already giving it his all. Looking at his adorable daughter, smiling shyly at the Wolf Saint Fa, Patriarch Yin felt a bit reluctant to part with her. After all, she was the daughter he had doted on for over 10 years. He wholeheartedly nurtured her, wanting her to marry into the royal family to raise Yin family status. Now, she could only be given to that old man who was almost 50 years old. In terms of age, Wolf Saint Magic was probably older than him by a few years. This time, the Yin family must grab hold of this opportunity. They must absolutely not let Fei-er's sacrifice go to waste. Some people were happy while others were worried. Yi Qing, who was thrown behind by Wolf Saint Magic, was still conscious. Yi Qing clearly saw the Yin family rushing to the battlefield. She clearly saw Yin Junfei pretending to lean into Wolf Saint Magic's arms. She clearly heard Wolf Saint Magic wanting to keep Yin Junfei by his side. She was so angry that her head was about to explode. That damn vixen. She actually seduced Wolf Saint Magic while she was seriously injured. The woman beside Wolf Saint Magic could only be her alone. Only she was the woman in Wolf Saint Magic's heart. Yin Junfei, that vixen. How could she snatch Wolf Saint Magic away? Wolf Saint Magic. Wolf Saint Magic. Yi Qing pursed her lips unwillingly as she called out Wolf Saint Magic miserably. When Yin Junfei heard the voice, she timidly raised her head and looked towards the direction of the voice. What she saw was a mass of flesh and blood, looking at her viciously. Yin Junfei exclaimed in shock and shrank back. That lump of flesh and blood was so badly mangled that it was almost impossible to tell what it was. The only thing that could be seen clearly was the pair of venomous eyes. Yin Junfei had grown up in the love of her parents. It was the first time he had seen a bloodbath on a battlefield. This was also the first time he had seen such a gaze. "Be careful, Miss Yin." Wolf Xingfa reached out and grabbed Yin Junfei's wrist. His powerful palm stabilized Yin Junfei's stumbling figure. Yin Junfei blushed slightly and lowered her eyelashes. She said softly, Thank you for the Wolf Saint technique." The Wolf Saint Law pulled her into his embrace and gently patted her slender back. "There's no need to be afraid. She's just an unimportant person. After the war is over, I'll deal with her." Yin Junfei's eyes were filled with joy. But when she thought about how she was still in Wolf Saint Fei's arms, she was immediately overwhelmed by embarrassment. She lowered her head and buried it in Holy Wolf's arms. In her eyes, there was a scheming look. Since her father had asked her to bewitch Wolf Saint magic, how could she possibly not know what that pile of flesh and blood was? A woman who had lost her looks and body. To her, it was not a threat at all. One could tell from Wolf Saint Magic's attitude towards Yi Qing Qian. Chapter 1995. Hearing Wolf Saint Dharma's heartless words, the sinister glint in Yi Qing Qian's eyes gradually dimmed. Her lips trembled as she wanted to go hysterical, but she didn't know what to shout about. From the start to the end, Wolf Saint Dharma had never turned back to look at her, because her face, which was similar to Wolf Saint Dharma's, had been destroyed, so she had completely no longer become the fox in Wolf Saint Dharma's heart, right? And this Yin Junfei was the second person to replace her. The more Yi Qing Qian thought, the more hopeless she felt, so that in the end, she shut her eyes fiercely. She was filled with unwillingness and stubbornness, but she was powerless. She couldn't even move her own body. At this moment, Yi Qing Qian finally understood the real reason why Yi Qing Luo sent her back to Wolf Saint Dharma. This was the real torture for her. Yi Qing Luo had long seen that Wolf Saint Dharma only cared about her face. Destroying her face was equivalent to destroying the bond between her and Wolf Saint Dharma. She who had lost Wolf Saint Dharma had no way to continue living. But how would she be willing to die under Yi Qing Luo's schemes? Yi Qing Luo was planning on this. Wanting her to seek death, there was nothing she could do, making her feel unresigned, living in despair. Yin family's addition was indeed a drop in the bucket, but at least there was another batch of people who were seeking death. The dark forces could also relax a little. After Yi Qing Luo instigated most of them to change sides, she retreated to the back of the Mu family. Her face was slightly pale. That look made old Master Mu couldn't help but ask about her well-being. Mu Lai was even more concerned about Yi Qing Luo's pulse. "Thank you everyone for your concern. I'm fine, just overused profound energy and a little tired." Yi Qing Luo's lips curled as she shook her head. The reason why she chose to use the instigation method was because the power of the God Relic had been exhausted. She wanted to use the power of the God Relic to deal with Wolf Saint Dharma. But her current body couldn't hold on for too long. Her profound jade heart didn't allow her to expend too much of her energy. She needed to adjust the profound energy in her body before she could recover. The people of the Mu family didn't need to form a bounded domain. At this time, they could protect her and let her adjust her dark force. Approximately 2 incense sticks of time later, Yi Qing Luo slowly opened her eyes. The situation of the battle was still the same. The royal army kept pushing back the dark forces. The main reason was that the soldiers of both sides had fought for too long and were somewhat exhausted. As a result, neither side was able to advance or force the other to take a step back. Seeing Yi Qing Luo opening her eyes, Mu Xiao looked at her anxiously. "Lass, how do you feel? I have a high-grade pill that can heal internal injuries here." It was refined by a medicine ancestor ranked medicine master, and I've kept it for many years to save my life. "Hurry up and eat it." As he spoke, Mu Xiao fished out a palm-sized wooden box from his interspatial ring. When the box was opened, there was a tiny pill lying inside. It was a faint golden color. This pill was indeed a high-grade pill, and it was worth 1,000 gold. How could Grandpa Mu be so generous to her, a person whom he just met? He even took out a life-saving pill. Yiqing Luo felt warm in her heart. She smiled as she shook her head and spoke in a warm voice. I'm not injured, nor do I have any internal injuries. Thanks to Grandpa keeping watch for me. After resting for a while, I feel much better. Mu Xiao didn't believe her and insisted on checking Yiqing Luo's pulse. Chapter 1996. Upon checking her pulse, Mu Xiao's brows twitched. Yiqing Luo was indeed not injured. Her pulse was smooth, no different from an ordinary person. However, this kind of pulse made Mu Xiao even more suspicious. Even after resting for a period of time and adjusting the profound qi in her body, Yiqing Luo's complexion was still slightly pale. If her pulse was normal, why was her complexion so ugly? Apparently, Yiqing Luo was indeed not feeling well, and she intentionally stopped him from checking her pulse. Not waiting for Mu Xiao to voice out his suspicions, Yiqing Luo had already stood up and looked towards the direction of the battlefield. Old Master Mu, this battle, the brothers are all tired. Everyone should take a break. Mu Xiao was still guessing how serious Yiqing Luo's discomfort was. Suddenly hearing Yiqing Luo's question, he was stunned. Marching to war, how can we rest just like that? Before he finished his words, Yiqing Luo had already flew up, turning into a magnificent shadow as she headed towards the direction of the battlefield. Seeing Yiqing Luo's appearance, the Dark Forces army instinctively felt fear as they all raised their heads to look at her. They saw Yiqing Luo flying directly towards Wolf Saint Magic, and finally, she alone passed over 10,000 Dark Forces army and stood in front of Wolf Saint Magic. Wolf Saint Magic's expression sunk as his 5 fingers suddenly clasped Yin Zhun Fei's shoulder tightly. He narrowed his long eyes as he looked coldly at Yiqing Luo. You want to fight with me? Yes. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she laughed wantonly. Since the two armies are locked in a fierce battle, as the two main characters who started the battle, you have to make a move no matter what, isn't it? Wolf Saint Magic scoffed. Just based on you? Just based on me. Yiqing Luo continued to smile warmly. Both armies will stop fighting and will fight. If you win, the West Continent will belong to your Dark Forces. If you lose, then the Dark Forces scram out of Nirvana Realm. How about that? Wolf Saint Magic's eyes were raging. Why should I agree to that? Based on your self-confidence. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Don't tell me Wolf Saint Magic is afraid that he can't match up to me. As she spoke, she nodded in sudden realization. That's true. Wolf Saint Law was defeated by me. Now, if he lost to me in front of his own subordinate, it would be even more embarrassing. No wonder you're afraid of me. After that, Yiqing Luo blinked her pure and innocent eyes as she smiled at the Wolf Saint technique. The current battle situation is very obvious. If I were to take action, the royal family's army would obtain victory in less than half an instant's time. But if you were to fight with me now, you might even be able to win the West Continent. But since the Wolf Saint technique is so afraid of me, then I have no other choice. Chapter 1997. Looking at the smiling young lady in front of him, Wolf Saint Magic's body tensed up. His face was extremely dark and terrifying. His malicious eyes were filled with viciousness. If he didn't agree, the people from the Dark Forces would probably be incited by Yiqing Luo to change sides again. If he agreed, would he be able to delay until his trump card appeared? The battlefield was in a dead silence. The air was filled with a bloody and oppressive atmosphere. Everyone's vision seemed to be gathered on Wolf Saint Magic. This battle had been going on for too long. The armies on both sides were exhausted, especially the Dark Forces army. They were already suffering unspeakably. The truly powerful holy techniques tried their best to hide behind them. Even when they were killing the royal army, they didn't pay attention at all. They watched their own brothers, one by one, die in front of their eyes. Not only were they exhausted physically, their hearts were also extremely tired. If Wolf Saint Magic agreed to fight Yi Qing Luo alone, the current situation was the best choice for the dark forces. However, Wolf Saint Magic remained silent for a long time. Apparently, he had no intention to fight. That restless heart of the dark forces gradually started to feel a sense of disgust. To begin with, they were already feeling extremely indignant after being repeatedly defeated by a group of humans from the lower realms. One must know that Nirvana realm was the lowest level of living beings. It was known as the lower realm's lowly place. They who were above the lower realm forces were actually beaten by a bunch of lowly humans without any ability to resist. This was especially so for their masters. The three saint techniques and the four pharaohs had allowed their own brothers to be wiped out by the royal army until their blood stained ground. Yet, not a single one of them was willing to step forward to avenge them. Those three saint magic and four pharaohs hid faster than anyone else. Looking at the royal army's side, every time they injured one of them, there would be countless of them rushing forward, shouting for their lives to take revenge for that person. Moreover, the royal army's various forces all cooperated and protected each other. In comparison, the people from the dark forces felt a strong sense of difference in treatment. Wolf Saint Magic and the rest totally disregarded the lives of these small fries. They fought with their lives, just because of Wolf Saint Magic's words. What was it for? The Dark Coalition's morale was completely shaken by this. Just as the morale of the army was falling and the Wolf Saint Law had yet to answer. A soft and delicate voice that pretended to be shy sounded out with a hint of probing intent. Wolf Saint Technique, why don't you let Fei accept the challenge? Wolf Xingfa was startled and lowered his head to look at the person in his arms. The young girl's face was bashful, but her expression was firm. The Wolf Saint Technique is powerful and domineering. Why would he fight a 15-year-old girl? I'm afraid student Yi Qing Luo is planning on this. Yin Zhen Fei slowly retreated from Wolf Saint Law's embrace. She raised her eyes and fixed her gaze on Yi Qing Luo. Student Yi Qing Luo, if Wolf Saint Dharma were to fight one-on-one with you, even if he won, Wolf Saint Dharma's face wouldn't be glorious, and in the end, he would even be accused of bullying a young lady. Do you really think that everyone is an idiot who could be fooled by you? Yin Zhenfei's words easily resolved the predicament of the Wolf Saint Technique, and even raised the Wolf Saint Technique, taking the opportunity to pull a wave of hatred towards Yi Qing Luo. It wasn't that the Wolf Saint Technique didn't dare to accept the challenge. He just couldn't be bothered to argue with a little girl. Yin Zhenfei's words were indeed reasonable. Even if Wolf Saint Dharma won Yi Qing Luo, no matter how heaven-defying or abnormal Yi Qing Luo was, everyone would only feel that Wolf Saint Dharma was bullying a young lady. No wonder Wolf Saint Dharma had not accepted the challenge for so long. Star. Chapter 1998. The Wolf Saint Technique also assumed a dignified posture. He narrowed his sinister eyes and wore an indifferent expression, as if he disdained to explain and was too lazy to do so. His long arm gently pinched Yin Zhenfei's shoulder, and his lips curled into a smile of admiration. It was obvious that he was really satisfied with Yin Zhenfei's intelligence. Yin Zhenfei's eyelashes drooped shyly, and following that, she looked towards Yi Qing Luo in a natural and unrestrained manner. So, for this battle, I will represent Wolf Saint Technique to fight. You and I are around the same age. Moreover, we are students from the same academy. So no matter if we win or lose, it is an extremely normal thing. Yi Qing Luo crossed her arms over her chest as her brows rose, squinting at Yin Zhenfei. In his memories, Yin Zhenfei wasn't this smart. Although this lady was Yin Xiao Yi's elder sister who shared the same father and mother. But their IQ was definitely not on the same level. But today, Yin Zhenfei's performance really made Yi Qing Luo astonished. Yin Zhenfei looked calm on the surface, but in her heart, she was extremely nervous. Especially after meeting Yi Qing Luo's gaze, she felt a chill running down her spine as her legs started to tremble. However, in order to help the Yin family hold onto the Wolf Saint Technique's thigh, she had to support the family on her own. She wanted to prove that the Yin family's choice of her, the eldest miss, was definitely not wrong. She would absolutely not give Yin Xiao any chance to make a comeback in the Yin family. The eldest daughter of the Yin family could only be her, Yin Zhenfei. Thinking of this, Yin Zhenfei's eyes shone with determination. She took a deep breath, raised her head, and looked at Yi Qing Luo with a smile, using the same words to counter. Could it be that student Yi Qing Luo is afraid? Compared to the last time they met, Yin Zhenfei seemed to have changed into another person. Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue. She really didn't know what kind of blow made this unruly and headstrong young lady grow up so quickly. Could it be because she realized that Yin Xiao Yi was a student of the devil class, and her innate talent was above hers? A sense of crisis? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her long and narrow eyes as she met Yin Zhenfei's provocative gaze. Afraid? Do you think you have the qualifications to make me afraid? She sneered arrogantly and wantonly. Yin Zhenfei, you can't even compare to a single hair on my Xiao Yi. Tell me, what right do you have to fight with me? You. Yin Zhenfei's face darkened. Comparing Yin Xiao Yi to her was simply her reverse scale. Yin Xiao Yi, that wastrel, what right did she have to be compared with her? He seemed to have seen through Yin Zhenfei's thoughts. Yi Qing Luo smiled faintly as she added, No, you're a fellow who can't even take one move from me. How are you fit to be mentioned on the same level as my Xiao Yi? Yin Zhenfei's eyes instantly widened as her face sunk as she directly rushed towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. In a flash, Yin Zhenfei took out two sharp knives from her waist. The two blades spun rapidly in her palms, and a powerful, profound energy exploded out from her body. Do you really have to come here to die? Yi Qing Luo's smile was extremely shallow as she yawned impatiently. Then I can only satisfy you. Yi Qing Luo's words landed. Her flame-like sleeves suddenly began to dance. A gust of wind swept up. A cold glint flashed past Yin Zhenfei's eyes as the twin blades in her hands suddenly condensed in extremely powerful, profound energy. The twin blades spun, extremely sharp, but in a blink of an eye, it was already nearing Yi Qing Luo as it directly slashed towards Yi Qing Luo's vital spot. Bam! Yi Qing Luo's hurricane clashed against Yin Zhenfei's twin blades. Chapter 1999. Just as everyone thought that Yin Zhenfei would be sent flying along with Yi Qing Luo's hurricane, but they saw Yin Zhenfei gripping her twin blades tightly as she bit her lower lip to stop the blood gushing out from her throat as she suddenly pressed downwards. The spectating commoners didn't know how much effort Yin Zhenfei had expended in this move. They only saw Yin Zhenfei wasn't sent flying by Yi Qing Luo. Instead, she was forced towards Yi Qing Luo. Even the 10-View sect master was unable to do this. Yin Zhenfei actually did it? What was the background of the Yin family? Why was this Yin family's daughter so powerful? Even Yi Qing Luo was slightly stunned. Was Yin Zhenfei so concerned about her? Or was it because she mentioned Yin Xiaoyi's topic? So concerned that she didn't even want her life? She actually forcefully broke through her profound energy, trying to take away her life. One must know that this kind of action of forcefully charging into the profound energy, any slight carelessness would cost one's life. She really didn't know if she should praise Yin Zhenfei for being brave or ridicule her for being dumb and ignorant. The twin blades in Yin Zhenfei's hands shone with a sharp glint. At the moment when she broke through the profound energy, Yin Zhenfei's lips curled into a cold smile as the short blade in her hand swiftly slashed towards Yi Qing Luo's neck. Yi Qing Luo, do you really think that I'm still the Yin Zhenfei who was at your mercy? Yin Zhenfei raised her chin complacently. I'm now an Earth Profound 7th grade cultivator. Now go and die. Yes, Yin Junfei was now an Earth Profound 7th grade cultivator. For her age, Earth Profound 7th grade, she could be considered as a genius among geniuses, a rare existence in this world. She who was in the 7th grade realm could be considered as a high-leveled cultivator, just based on that slut Yi Qing Luo who only knew how to bully others. How could she be compared to her? Look, wasn't she able to easily break through Yi Qing Luo's profound wave now? Even if Yi Qing Luo didn't want to fight with her. She absolutely wanted Yi Qing Luo to fight with her. She wanted to personally crush Yi Qing Luo's arrogance and pride, as long as she destroyed Yi Qing Luo. Even if Yin Xiao wanted to make use of external factors to regain the Yin family, even then, he wouldn't have the chance. The complacent Yin Junfei didn't notice that when she mentioned that she was already at Earth Profound 7th grade, Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a scornful arc. Earth Profound 7th grade? If I remember correctly, the last time he saw Yin Junfei was just a Xian practitioner who had just entered the Earth Profound realm. At that time, he couldn't even take one move from Yin Xiao. In just a few short months, he had already advanced to the 7th grade of the Earth Profound realm. How much effort did the Yin family put into Yin Junfei? He actually forcefully raised Yin Junfei's profound grade to such a level in such a short time. One had to know that it was impossible for a person's profound level to have such a qualitative leap with just elixirs. Even the dark forces abstruse Yin Shi could not help Yin Junfei improve so quickly. Moreover, it was obvious that the Yin family had only established a relationship with the dark forces today. Where did Yin Junfei's change come from? Yi Qing Luo, you know you can't hide anymore. So are you prepared to die obediently? Yin Junfei's sharp voice interrupted Yi Qing Luo's thoughts. She raised her eyes and saw Yin Junfei's attack coming toward her. Like a hot knife through butter, it was extremely ferocious. Yin Junfei neared. Yi Qing Luo could clearly see the complacent and arrogant expression on her face. Yi Qing Luo laughed softly as her sleeves danced once again, as though it was a casual sweep. The red, profound glow shot upwards. Star. Chapter 2000. A blood-curdling scream rang out. Yin Junfei's body was struck by the dark radiance, and she flew backward. She fell heavily to the ground and rolled a few times on the ground. After a long while, he steadied himself. Yin Junfei mustered up her willpower as she half knelt up, looking at Yi Qing Luo in disbelief. Was she dreaming? Yi Qing Luo had obviously just casually waved her sleeves earlier. How did he block her twin blades? Moreover, it was done with such ease that it seemed as if it was as easy as blowing off dust. Earlier, when she broke through Yi Qing Luo's profound wave, she was obviously unscathed and didn't suffer any harm at all. Didn't it prove that Yi Qing Luo's profound grade was not as good as hers? Why did a casual wave of Yi Qing Luo's sleeve have such a powerful force? No, she absolutely did not believe that Yi Qing Luo's profound grade would be above Earth Profound 7th grade. That's it. Yi Qing Luo ridiculed him. I've said this before, just based on scum like you, I totally disdain a fight with you. As she spoke, she slightly raised her chin and shot a torch-like gaze at Lang Shengfa, who was watching the battle from the side. She arrogantly provoked. Lang Shengfa, are you still planning to hide behind a trashy woman like a tortoise? Yi Qing Luo. Yin Junfei's eyes were burning with rage as she gave a low howl and charged towards Yi Qing Luo. She didn't believe it. She didn't believe that Yi Qing Luo's profound grade was above her. She didn't believe that after paying such a huge price and growing to this stage, she still wasn't able to defeat Yi Qing Luo. She, Yin Junfei, was the only young miss of the Yin family. No one can replace her position. She must kill Yi Qing Luo to cut off Yin Xiao Yi's chance to make a comeback. Looking at Yin Junfei's frenzied and reckless expression, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but burst out laughing. Yi Qing Luo's figure flashed. Yin Jinfei missed. Before she could regain her balance, Yi Qing Luo had already raised her leg and kicked towards Yin Jinfei. With a loud thud, Yin Jinfei knelt face down on the ground. He appeared to be in an extremely sorry state. Yi Qing Luo, you bitch. The last word was forcefully swallowed back into his stomach. Yi Qing Luo rushed towards her face once again and sent another flying kick downwards. This kick caused Yin Jinfei to roll a few more times on the ground. She crashed into the corpses and bones on the ground, stopping the inertia. Yin Jinfei, with your trashy strength, you have a nerve to stand up for Wolf Saint Fa? Don't forget the agreement I made with the Wolf Saint Law? Yi Qing Luo looked down arrogantly at Yin Jinfei from above as she gave an extremely ridiculing smile. This battle, if the dark forces were to lose, then they would have to scram out of Nirvana realm forever. She raised an eyebrow. Her figure flashed, and she appeared in front of Yin Jinfei. What do you want to do? Yin Jinfei was shocked and wanted to carry him away. Yi Qing Luo suddenly stretched out her hand and locked her lower jaw. Her slender fingers clenched tightly, exerting all her strength. Her charming eyes curved, and she smiled devilishly. So you scum, scram to the side. You're not qualified to represent the dark forces. Yin Jinfei was in so much pain that cold sweat appeared on her forehead. Her eyes were filled with hatred as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. However, Yin Jinfei had thought too highly of herself. Her chance to glare at her angrily didn't last for too long. Yi Qing Luo had already thrown Yin Jinfei aside, as though she was throwing rubbish. Her gaze was directed towards Wolf Saint Law. At the same time, her feet moved and she flew up. As though there was wind beneath her feet, she brought along a strong, profound energy as she attacked towards Wolf Saint Law's direction. Wolf Saint Law, if you don't want to fight then, I'll take it that you've admitted defeat. Yi Qing Luo gave a crafty smile as the glower flame fan in her hands suddenly opened up. Numerous tiny silver needles shot out with a swoosh, swoosh, swoosh sound star. Chapter 2001. The Wolf Saint Law's eyes turned cold. The tiny silver needles flickered in his eyes. Wolf Saint technique, be careful. Yin Jinfei struggled to climb up from the ground, but her ribs, which had been broken by Yi Qing Luo, couldn't support her strength at all. The Wolf Saint technique spread his 5 fingers, and a stream of mysterious yin qi was released from his palm. The palm energy was strong, and it rushed towards the silver needles that were coming towards him. His face was extremely gloomy. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's gaze, it was filled with an intense malevolence. Wolf Saint technique knew very well that he would not be able to gain any advantage in Yi Qing Luo's hands. If he were to forcefully fight with Yi Qing Luo, in the end, he would be the one to suffer and lose face. After the Wolf Saint Fa sent out his palm wind, he dodged to the side and shouted coldly, "This Saint Fa has never agreed to such an unfair wager." Just as the eldest daughter of the Yin family said, "Even if I defeat you and obtain the Western continent, I will only become a laughingstock. Therefore, there's no such thing as admitting defeat if I don't fight you." These words made Yi Qing Luo's eyes oozed out a sneer of disdain. He was clearly no match for her. Yet, he purposely used such high-sounding words to cover up this fact. Then, let her turn the Wolf Saint technique into the joke of the West continent. Let the Wolf Saint technique completely lose the morale of the army. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. As long as the Wolf Saint technique was defeated by her, would the dark forces still have the mood to continue fighting? Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as her fingers moved. Those numerous silver needles were like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, abruptly avoiding the Wolf Saint technique's palm wind, shooting out from all directions. The momentum of the silver needles was extremely fast. From the angle of the Wolf Saint technique, he could almost clearly see that the silver needles were filled with black poisonous gas. Poison. That would be another one of Yi Qing Luo's good shows. If he was corroded by the poisonous gas, I'm afraid, a life worse than death Wolf Saint Technique knew very well that under Yi Qing Luo's innocent and harmless appearance hid a heart that was completely unlike a 15-year-old girl's. He wanted to avoid it, but the angle of Yi Qing Luo's silver needles were extremely tricky. The Wolf Saint Technique dodged the incoming silver needles. However, there was no way for him to avoid the silver needles that shot at him from other angles. Just as Yi Qing Luo's silver needle was about to shoot towards the Wolf Saint Technique, suddenly, everything around the West Wave continent was covered by a powerful pressure. It was a kind of pressure that could only be condensed by a high-level, profound practitioner. The surrounding trees were rustling from the strong winds. The sound came from afar, as if it was right in front of them. A strong pressure spread out. His target was Yi Qing Luo's direction. Ding ding dong dong. There were a few crisp sounds. The silver needles were swept into a ball by the hurricane. This powerful dark force flew straight towards him. The armies on both sides were sent flying one after another. Everyone was shocked. Well, what kind of power was this? He was actually able to easily blast all of us profounders flying? Everyone in the Mu family reacted quickly, before even more profound practitioners were injured by that pressure. Without any hesitation, he used his own power to form another barrier that enveloped the direction of the royal army. As for the Mu couple, they followed Long Yinzhan and the rest as they speedily headed towards the direction of those cultivators who were sent flying, to receive those cultivators in case they caused any more damage. But the dark forces weren't so lucky. Just as the strong pressure covered the sky and covered the earth, 3 Saint Techniques and 4 pharaohs escaped faster than any of them, not to mention protecting them. Chapter 2002. The battlefield had become extremely chaotic. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as her eyes were filled with vigilance. Her silver needles had actually been completely blocked. Not a single one more. In this world, the number of people who could do this could be counted with one's fingers. But right now, there was a gush of mysterious energy. Light, light, loose, loose. All of her silver needles had been blocked. Who on earth was this person? Was he an enemy or a friend? Why did he intervene in this battle? Countless doubts filled his mind. Following the onslaught of the hurricane, a figure appeared indistinctly in the hurricane. Wolf Saint Law, who had just saved his life, sat down on the ground in shock as he panted heavily, until those silver needles fell beside his feet one by one. He then regained his senses. Sir. Wolf Saint Law's face lit up as he swiftly climbed up from the ground, his face filled with ecstasy as he looked ahead. The hurricane dissipated, and that figure gradually became clearer. That was an elderly in his 60s, dressed in a black long robe. This long robe was totally different from the black robes of the dark forces. It looked extremely exquisite and noble. The elderly placed his hands behind his back as he looked at Wolf Saint Law, who was heading towards him with an arrogant look. When Wolf Saint Law saw who it was, the smile on his face froze as his hurried footsteps also stopped. Sir, why? Wolf Saint Law's expression turned ugly as he pursed his lips tightly as he asked in a muffled voice. The elderly stood with his hands behind his back as his aura was fully unleashed, giving off an oppressive feeling. His old eyes were extremely sharp as he stared straight at Wolf Saint Law, taking in all the expressions on his face. His shriveled lips formed a cold arc of ridicule. Sir still has some matters to settle and is temporarily unable to rush over, so he sent me to assist Wolf Saint Law. Wolf Saint Law glanced suspiciously at the elderly, although the elderly's aura was very strong. But Wolf Saint Law didn't know the elderly's ability. Could this elderly really fight with Yi Qing Luo? Since Sir has sent me to assist, then I hope Wolf Saint Law will believe in Sir's choice. If Wolf Saint Law has no trust in Sir, then both of our cooperation will come to an end. The elderly scoffed as his eyes were filled with ridicule. Wolf Shengfa was angered by the old man's words. He suppressed the rage in his heart and forced a smile. No. How could I doubt your choice? As he spoke, he respectfully bowed towards the old man. I hope Senior can lend a hand." The old man snorted and glanced disdainfully at the wolf Saint Law. He walked right past him and walked forward. As the old man walked over, a terrifying wave of air that could destroy heaven and earth suddenly erupted from the old man's body. The air waves were like surging tides, like vortexes. "You juniors, if you know what's good for you, throw away your weapons and choose to surrender. Otherwise, don't blame me for attacking you juniors." The old man's deep voice was sonorous and powerful, and his aura could swallow mountains and rivers. That aura caused the troops from both sides to feel astonished. The energy that sent all the profound practitioners flying earlier was released by this old man. The air billowed, and the vortex churned as if it could devour the entire world. What kind of power was this? It was too terrifying. Even Mu Xiao couldn't help but reveal an astonished expression when he felt this surge of power. Since when did such a powerful person exist in Nirvana realm? Surrender? Old Grandpa, what a big tone you have. A sweet voice was heard from the right side of the old man. Yiqing Luo walked slowly to the front of the old man and smiled lightly. "Are you the external help that the dark forces have invited?" Star. Chapter 2003. When the elderly's vision was fixed on Yiqing Luo, a glint of radiance flashed past. "Young lady, I'm indeed here to help the Wolf Saint technique." He spoke calmly as his sharp gaze swept past Yiqing Luo's eyes. Could it be that young lady is the representative of the West Continent? "No, I can't represent the West Continent." Yiqing Luo met the elderly's gaze as her glower flame fan swayed gently. "I'm merely protecting my home, protecting this piece of land that I grew up on." When the elderly heard that, he couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Young lady, in that case you're going against me?" "Against me?" Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. "If you want to take action against other continents, naturally it's none of my business. But if you want to help the dark forces to invade my West Continent, then I have no choice but to interfere." Her curved brows were narrow and alluring, so lively that it seemed like it could speak crystal clear. The elderly laughed loudly as he examined Yiqing Luo. "Young lady, do you know who I am? So young and frivolous. Aren't you afraid of offending someone you can't afford to offend?" He scoffed lightly. "I see that you're pretty, so I won't be calculative with you. Now move aside, and I'll spare your life." Yiqing Luo's fingertips moved as the glower flame fan opened up, covering half of her face. She gave a tender smile as her charming eyes flashed with a hint of ridicule. "Old Grandpa, are you trying to be an old cow eating young grass? But you've taken a liking to me, but I despise you." Her words fell. Yiqing Luo's figure suddenly shot upwards. Her blazing dress was like a blooming rose. The glower flame fan in her hands suddenly opened up as it turned into a chi dragon. The dragon head was raised high while the tail of the head swayed. The red chi dragon was vivid and lifelike. That chi dragon spiraled around, appearing extremely noble and majestic. The surrounding chi was like a surging tide as it surged. Yiqing Luo's attack made the elderly's eyes flash with a sliver of interest. He gave a cold laugh as his palm moved. His black sleeves brought forth a burst of earth-shaking energy. In a split second, the entire West Continent public square seemed as though it was about to collapse as the wind whistled past their ears. His surrounding profound energy was like a huge wave that surged into the sky. Following his attack, it was like a surging tide, surging towards Yiqing Luo. "Qing Luo, miss ye, lass." A few worried and panicked voices came from all directions. Long Yunzhan raised his blue long sword and was about to rush up to help Yiqing Luo block this move. Tong Ziqing immediately hugged his arm. "Class rep, calm down. Qing Luo would be fine. You can't go there, you'll die." Anyone could see the old man's strength. It was completely beyond everyone's imagination. Ordinary people like them went up. Chapter 2004. Ugh! A muffled moan was heard from Tong Ziqing's nose. She held onto the ground in pain as she felt a tearing pain on her back. Perhaps it was because she had fallen onto the broken rocks, cutting the skin on her back. Tong Ziqing bit her lower lip tightly as she endured the pain as she hugged Long Yunzhan's leg tightly. Class monitor, you can't go. That force is too strong. You can't go. Long Yunzhan's eyes were filled with worry as he looked at the battlefield, which was shrouded in profound qi. His heart was filled with worry, almost tormenting him to madness. Long Yunzhan's ears could no longer hear Tong Ziqing's voice. He lowered his head and was about to push Tong Ziqing away. His gaze fell onto Tong Ziqing's slender back, which was stained with blood. His pupils suddenly constricted. The broken rocks had cut through Tong Ziqing's rough green robe. It revealed half of her back skin. Fresh blood covered that area, an ugly scar which would never disappear. Bright red blood stung his eyes. Long Yunzhan's expression congealed as he regained his senses. Are you all right? He bent over and carried the disheveled Tong Ziqing into his arms. Warm blood covered his palm. This was Tong Ziqing's scar on her back because of him. Now this scar, because of his pushing, had spread again. Looking at the lady whose eyes were red, but she was enduring the pain, only repeating the words, asking him not to go over. Long Yunzhan's heart could no longer persevere as he let go of Tong Ziqing and rushed into the battlefield to help Yiqing Luo. In just a short period of time, Yi Ziqing's expression changed. On the battlefield, a burst of profound energy colliding and exploding was heard. Long Yunzhan immediately looked over. He saw that petite figure standing steadily in the hurricane. She held on her glower flame fan as she and the elderly man's palm wind were in a stalemate in mid-air. The surrounding air was also faintly trembling. Terrifying qi rays set off waves after waves of air, stacking layer upon layer. Just one look, and one felt extremely shocked. After the two forces collided once again, the profound energy dissipated, completely disappearing. Yiqing Luo retreated several steps. Her feet left a long mark on the blood-soaked ground. The old man only took a small step back. The elderly narrowed his malicious eyes as he stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. Young lady, your aptitude is not bad. Initially, this old man thought that there was probably no one else in this Nirvana realm who could block this old man's attack. Unexpectedly, you, little lady, actually managed to block this old man's attack. The corners of his lips curled up, and he said with a bewitching smile, "Little girl, are you interested in becoming my disciple? If you become my disciple, I will teach you everything I know." Grandpa, you really want to eat the cradle? Yiqing Luo's face was filled with disgust as she looked at the elderly man in astonishment and shook her head hard. I'm a young lady from a decent family. Old grandpa, we don't date. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. In the old man's eyes, it was his honor to take a fancy to this group of lowly humans. This insolent little girl actually dared to refuse him. Moreover, her words were so unpleasant to hear. Little girl, this old man will give you a word of advice. Nirvana realm is about to perish. As long as you become this old man's disciple, this old man can bring you away from Nirvana realm to live in other planes. The elderly man's malicious eyes stared at Yiqing Luo's eyes without blinking. Perish? Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. Chapter 2005. Lass. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo felt a warmth on her wrist as old man Song's voice entered her mind. His voice was a little solemn as he said in a deep voice, "This person is not someone from the Nirvana realm. From the aura he exudes, he should be from the upper realm, Earth realm. Earth realm people? Why would someone from the Earth realm come to Nirvana realm? Could it be that he was not afraid of heaven's punishment? One must know that this was a place where massacres were everywhere and the strong were respected. The most important thing was the balance of each realm. Nirvana realm was the lowest realm among all the major realms. A profound practitioner of the earth profound realm here could already be considered a high-level profound practitioner. But if placed in the earth realm, an earth profound realm cultivator was just a low-level cultivator. Especially in the Nirvana realm, the sky profound realm cultivator was revered. In the earth realm, there were a lot of them. This was the difference between the two realms. And because of this, in order to maintain the balance of each realm, once the profound energy exceeded the limit of this realm, it would be drawn into the upper realm. And people from the upper realm, without the permission of the upper realm's realm emperor, they could not go to the lower realm and disturb the balance. Of course, they could also imitate Qiao Jin and disguise themselves as an upper-level cultivator from the lower realm. No matter what, Heaven Wei would not be able to detect Qiao Jin's aura. But, obviously, this old man in front of them did not disguise himself at all, as he released his profound energy unscrupulously. Was he not worried about Heaven Wei's punishment? Not worried about being forcefully sent back to the Earth realm? The dark forces actually colluded with people from the Earth realm and invited people from the Earth realm as external help. How could our West Continent's army defeat the experts from the Earth realm? Yiqing Luo frowned as she looked at the old man vigilantly. If he deliberately suppressed his profound energy and only used the limit of Nirvana realm to deal with you, Heaven Wei will naturally not be able to detect his strength. After Old Man Song explained, he said in a serious tone, "Little girl, if the people from the Earth realm intervene, I'm afraid that the West Continent will be in danger. Even if the upper realm wants to remedy the situation, it will take some time for them to descend from the upper realm." Yiqing Luo caught the main point, the period of time you mentioned. What do you mean, how long? Every world position has its own passageway. It takes at least 4 hours to pass through that passageway. Old Man Song said. However, without the permission of the realm emperor, the guards at the passageway will not let you pass. It is clear that this old man secretly came down from the Earth realm. He must have spent a lot of time. Yiqing Luo muttered as she calculated in her heart, which means to say the dark forces had long colluded with that bunch of people from the Earth realm. That was why the old man was able to arrive in time. If the old man from the Earth realm interfered, the royal army would definitely not be able to withstand it. Right now, she was the only one who could stall the old man. When DMO Xian rushed over, only then could this matter be completely resolved. There was always someone better out there. After seeing the old man's ability, Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with the urge to have a go. But more than that, he was calm. If she wanted to fight with an expert, even the slightest mishap would happen. It wasn't just her life that had been destroyed. Instead, it was the entire Western continent. Yiqing Luo didn't dare to use the West Continent to gamble. Since the Wolf Saint technique had invited external help, then she could also invite external help. Chapter 2006. Young lady, why are you still in a daze? From the looks of it, you've decided to become this old man's disciple. The elderly's gloomy voice was as cold as ice. As he said that, he flew towards Yiqing Luo's direction. He stretched out his arm and grabbed Yiqing Luo's shoulder. "Then leave with me now." His fingers were extremely shriveled and looked extremely horrifying. His 5 fingers were slightly bent and turned into eagle claws as he clawed towards Yiqing Luo, totally not showing any amiability as a master. On the contrary, it seemed like he wanted to take her life. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. Her reaction was extremely swift as she turned sideways and avoided the elderly's eagle claws. Following that, her toes tapped lightly on the ground and her figure swiftly retreated backwards. A red robe fluttered in the wind like a burning flame. Following that, her slender fingers gently brushed past the glower flame fan. A surge of red light burst out violently. Numerous silver threads encircled the elderly. Those silver threads were like sharp blades, layers upon layers, as though it was trying to wrap the elderly into a silken silkworm cocoon. Following the manipulation of Yiqing Luo's fingers, The silver threads turned into circles and circles of ripples and huge waves, like a surging tide, constantly encircling the profound energy. Qing Luo 1. Qing Luo 1. Tong Ziqing nestled in Long Yunzhan's arms. Looking at the battle situation, her face revealed a joyous expression. When the others heard that, their anxious and worried expressions also surfaced a joyous expression. Earlier, that elderly was wrapped into a cicada cocoon by Yi Qing Luo's silver threads. This should be considered as Yi Qing Luo had won that elderly. Wolf St. Law had been looking at the elderly anxiously. Towards that sir, he had never believed him. That person had said that he would personally come to Nirvana Realm to help him occupy the West Continent. But in the end, he sent an old man over. Although the old man's ability was very strong, but he could not be compared to Yi Qing Luo. What was the use of being strong? What he wanted was a strong practitioner who could deal with Yi Qing Luo. After seeing Wolf St. Law being completely covered by the silver threads, Wolf St. Law's expression was as black as charcoal. If that person still didn't come, what chance did they have to win? Could it be that he really had to flee again? Wolf St. Fa's face was ashen as he cursed that person in his heart. Just as everyone was cheering, Yi Qing Luo's fingers, which were clenching the glower flame fan, suddenly paused. Her expression is serious, and her sharp eyes sweep over the people who are about to come over. He won't die so easily. Stand in the enchantment of the Mu family, and no one is allowed to come out. Yi Qing Luo's words had just landed. There was a loud bang sound. Immediately after, an explosion occurred in the direction of the cicada pupa. Puffs of white smoke and dust floated up. The huge cicada pupa exploded, and a strong airflow lingered in the air, one circle after another. Gradually, it turned into a whirlpool. Amidst the smoke and blood, after the cicada pupa exploded, the elderly man clenched his fists tightly as he stared furiously at Yi Qing Luo. His long black robe had been cut in several places by the cicada pupae. He looked extremely disheveled. Because of this, the elderly man was extremely furious. The expression on his face was sinister and terrifying. "All right, young lady, I will seriously play with you. I want to see where your limit is." The elderly man clenched his teeth as he gave a chilly smile. The surging profound energy followed the aura of the cicada pupa as it shot out a powerful force. Yi Qing Luo's face turned pale. She immediately flipped the glower flame fan and blocked that profound energy which was charging towards her, even though she had reacted in advance. But she still couldn't avoid the elderly man's attack. This attack directly broke through Yi Qing Luo's resistance and struck fiercely towards Yi Qing Luo's chest. Star. Chapter 2007. Bam! Yi Qing Luo's petite body was sent flying. Everyone stared at that slender figure as she was sent flying like a cannonball. Their hearts started to wrench. They wanted to rush forward and help Yi Qing Luo to block this attack. However, the enchantment formed by the elders of the Mu family forcibly separated them. Yi Qing Luo felt a fishy sweetness gushing up her throat. She took a deep breath and released her profound qi, tried her best to stabilize her body, to prevent herself from crashing into the pool of blood. Her 2 feet in the ground drew a long ditch. Finally, when her body stabilized, she propped herself up. Her breathing was a little messy. Her body swayed slightly. After some time, her breathing gradually calmed down. She raised her eyes. The corners of her eyes curved as she smiled lightly. "You're indeed a senior from the upper realm. Your ability is indeed very strong." The elderly's eyes suddenly sunk. The gaze which looked at Yi Qing Luo revealed some suspicions. This lady actually knew that he was from the upper realm? Who was she? How could she recognize that he was from the upper realm? And although he didn't use his full strength in the attack earlier, but he used 50% of his strength, this little girl from the lower dimensions was actually able to remain unscathed after receiving a strike from him? No wonder. The dark forces had always been arrogant. Wolf Saint Technique actually took the initiative to seek cooperation from Sir. The elderly squinted his malicious eyes as he sneered. Good fellow, young lady, this old man is getting more and more interested in you, and wants to take you in as my disciple even more. He dragged the last syllable extremely long. Suddenly, his voice abruptly raised. Now this old man will test your innate talent properly. His voice had just ended when a strong ray of profound light shot out from the elderly's body. The invisible pressure covered the entire square. The barrier set up by the Mu families old and young, at this moment, was unable to withstand the pressure and loosened. If one looked closely, one could see Mu Xiao and Master Mu Chu, the corners of their mouths were bleeding. Apparently, the elderly was serious. Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes as her slender brows knitted tightly. The 5 fingers which were holding the glower flame fan clenched into a fist. The innate talent and profound rank of the people from the Earth realm were already above hers. If the old man was serious about fighting with her, she would never be able to gain any advantage. He stared at the old man's profound strength, which was still increasing explosively. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as her toes suddenly tapped lightly on the ground, and her figure suddenly turned into a breeze, like a remnant shadow, heading towards the direction of the elderly man. She flipped the devouring flame fan a few times on her fingertips. A sharp dagger slid out from the handle of the fan. The red electric currents flowing around the glowing flame fan spread out layer by layer. That flirtatious red glow made Yiqing Luo's devastatingly beautiful looks look even more flirtatious and alluring. She got close to the old man and attacked him in a close-quarters combat style. Competing with the old man with profound strength was a retarded way of doing things. Now, he could only use modern close combat and ancient martial arts to seal the old man's attack and break his moves. Only then would they be able to achieve victory. The elderly had not expected that a delicate young lady like Yiqing Luo would choose such a method to tangle with him. Close combat was indeed not his forte. But to deal with a young lady, it wasn't a problem. For a moment, the two of them were locked in a fierce battle. The spectators who were in a truce around the West Square revealed a shocked expression when they saw this battle. Chapter 2008. They seem to have heard Yiqing Luo mention that the old man was a senior from the upper realm. The dark forces had invited external help from the upper realm. The upper realm. To them, that was a godlike existence. No wonder this old man looked so mighty and domineering. His ability was so strong that none of them could maintain their balance under the old man's she-wave. Of course, except for Yiqing Luo, that pervert. Especially after knowing the old man's identity. Everyone felt that Yiqing Luo was a pervert. Just how powerful was Yiqing Luo? She was able to exchange hundreds of blows with an old man from the upper realm and even came to a draw. She was totally unaffected by the profound waves from the old man from the upper realm. Could it be that Yiqing Luo was already a sky mystic overlord, and the grade wasn't low? F***K. What kind of F***king breed was this? Who was Yiqing Luo? The famous good-for-nothing 7th young mistress. A waste of 15 years of time. In just a few months, not only had she caused a sensation in the entire West continent, she had even spread to other continents, and her name had spread throughout the entire Nirvana realm. And then, in front of all of them, came to a draw with the old man from the upper realm. Were they dreaming? This talent, even the overlord couldn't achieve it, right? Everyone had thought that Yiqing Luo and the old man had come to a draw, and it looked extremely easy. Only Yiqing Luo herself knew. She had exhausted all her energy to engage in close combat with the old man. Although fighting with the old man in close combat was the best choice, it was not a wise choice. But the disparity of profound energy was too huge. The old man's counterattack, whether it was a punch or a palm, was several times stronger than Yiqing Luo's strength. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo's sharp senses, she could display her footwork at the fastest speed and accurately avoid the old man's attack. But Yiqing Luo would still be injured by the old man's attack. The profound light flickered and appeared faintly in midair. While they were exchanging blows, sounds of collision could be heard from time to time. Both of them exchanged over 10 blows again. Yiqing Luo was gradually at a disadvantage. After the two of them exchanged a palm strike, both sides were sent flying back. The old man took a few steps back and steadied himself. "Little girl, your talent and limits have won my heart. I have decided that I will bring you to the Earth Domain and train you well." Yiqing Luo wasn't that lucky. After the two palms collided, she flew back dozens of steps. Finally, his heel pressed against a large tree that had been blown up by the mystical qi. Only then did he slow down his body. She took a deep breath. The intense pain eroded her limbs and bones. She felt as if her body was being decomposed. With every breath he took, he felt a stabbing pain all over his body. She calmed herself down and blinked her charming eyes. Only after a long time did she focus on the old man. She could smell the sweet scent of blood on her. Nose, ears, mouth. Traces of blood flowed out. As expected, the disparity in Xian rank was too great. Was he still unable to win? Her face turned pale, her body swayed, and her breathing became erratic. Her previous battle with Jing Yinyin had caused her to use the power of a divine artifact. She had first depleted most of her energy. After the divine artifact's energy was depleted, her own strength had also been affected, now against the old man from the Earth Domain. Chapter 2009. Yiqing Luo's expression was seen by the elderly man. He sneered sinisterly as his malicious eyes stared deeply at that pale complexion. "Young lady, take a nap first. When you wake up, you'll be my proudest disciple." As he said that, his figure started to move swiftly. His palms flipped, and his palm qi was extremely sharp as a tyrannical and powerful profound ray surged out. Yiqing Luo's face turned paler by several shades. She held on to her willpower and bit the tip of her tongue hard, until the smell of blood filled her entire mouth. She took a deep breath as her feet moved, displaying her footwork in an attempt to avoid the elderly man's attack. But just as her feet moved, at the next instance, the elderly man's palm wind followed closely behind. Damn it! Her footwork had indeed been seen through. The current her speed was totally incomparable to before. The elderly man could clearly see her trajectory. She couldn't avoid it? Bam, bam, bam. The palm wind struck, stirring up several air currents. Yiqing Luo didn't feel the pain of the profound qi cutting through her body. She frowned as she fixed her eyes in front. She saw two figures standing in front of her, helping her to block the elderly man's palm wind. The man's blue robe fluttered, like the lake water, rippling under the strong wind. The woman's green robe fluttered as she held a long spear in her hand as her profound energy surged. Long Yunjian and Tong Ziqing. They actually broke through the barrier, helping her to block the elderly man's rising momentum. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes sunk as huge waves surged in her enchanting blood-red pupils. "What are you guys doing here? Quickly go back." Although Long Yunjian was an earth dragon, but his memory had yet to recover. His energy had yet to recover. He who had yet to transform into a dragon. How could he be the earth realm elderly man's opponent? Tong Ziqing. Her ability was indeed not bad, but in the earth realm elderly man's hands, she probably wouldn't last more than 3 moves. They were not the earth realm elderly man's opponent. "Qing Luo, take a rest. Leave the rest to us." "Qing Luo, you need to rest," Long Yunjian and Tong Ziqing said in unison. They went up against the earth realm elderly man and directly started a battle with him. "You're rushing to die? You young people really value friendship and loyalty." The old man smiled coldly, and his eyes flickered with a mocking excitement. He licked his dry lips and smiled eerily. "Since that's the case, this old man will satisfy you. Your opponent is me. Yiqing Luo howled hoarsely. Long Yunjian, Tong Ziqing, the both of you scram back to the array barrier. Get lost. However, the two of them looked at the old man with excitement in their eyes, as if they had seen their prey. There was no fear in their eyes. The two of them looked at each other, and their auras surged. A sword and a spear surrounded the old man. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale as she clenched her fists. Suddenly, he raised his leg and was about to charge into the battle. However, his wrist was grabbed by someone. Mu Zhao's solemn voice resounded. Little Yi, don't let them down. You're not in a good state right now. So, you must adjust the internal force in your body. On the other side, Mu Lai and Shui Fei Shui blocked in front of Yiqing Luo. Only you are able to cross hands with the people from the upper realm. If anything happens to you, wouldn't the West Continent be destroyed? Little Yi, you must recuperate quietly for a while to adjust the profound energy in your body so that you can save more people. Yiqing Luo's entire body tensed up as her eyes stared unblinkingly at the two who were battling with the old man. She didn't want to save anyone. She only wanted her brothers to be safe. Star. In front of him, two figures flashed past. Long Yunjian and Tong Ziqing were sent flying by a burst of energy. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. However, she heard Mu Zhao's stern shout. Little Yi, you can't be distracted at this crucial moment. Calm your mind. She felt a strong pressure on her shoulders that pinned her to the ground, not allowing her to move at all. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with a biting cold glint as she stared at Long Yunjian and Tong Ziqing's direction. They are not that elderly man's match. That elderly man is from the Earth Realm. He's from the Earth Realm. Her voice was extremely hoarse from worry. Chapter 2011. As though he had sensed the dispute on their side, the two of them who were sent flying speedily got up again. Their feet exerted strength as they held the weapons in their hands and charged towards the Earth Realm elderly man. Their bodies were filled with blood scars. Furthermore, Tong Ziqing's ears started to ooze out more and more blood. Their entire bodies were in a tearing pain. The two of them recalled Yiqing Luo and the Earth Realm elderly man's long battle. Yiqing Luo's injuries were much more serious than their external injuries. But Yiqing Luo acted as though nothing had happened, as she fought with the Earth Realm elderly man over and over again. How could they possibly retreat just because of this little bit of injury? They wanted to let Yiqing Luo recuperate her depleted profound energy as soon as possible. They tried their best to drag more time for Yiqing Luo. The blue light in Long Yunjian's eyes gradually became thicker as circles and circles of ripples kept on spreading. The blue long sword in his hand suddenly shot out an intense, profound ray, following the strong flickering of the blue light in his eyes. His profound energy became thicker and thicker, as though there was some kind of energy accumulating in his body, waiting to be unleashed. This surge of terrifying, profound energy made the elderly squint his eyes as he took a deep look at Long Yunjian. In his eyes, a sliver of judging intent flashed past. Lad, what are you? The aura from your body doesn't seem like an ordinary human's aura. The elderly man was apparently interested in Long Yunjian. Long Yunjian's longsword moved. It instantly turned into a ray of blue light. The dark force that was shot out actually cut the old man's robe. The elderly man's eyes suddenly shone as he gave a cold laugh. Ha ha ha. I not expected that I would meet such a living being on this trip down to the lower realm. The lower realm actually has such a living being like you. His eyes shone with obvious greed. I want to subdue you. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. Could it be that Long Yunjian's human dragon identity had already been discovered by the elderly man? Following the elderly man's words, the elderly man's surroundings had already formed a huge, profound qi, as though the surrounding air was enveloped under her profound qi. The two forces collided in midair. Long Yunjan's body flew out once more. Class President. Tong Ziqing panicked and rushed toward Long Yunjan, wanting to catch him. But she did not move. The old man suddenly rushed in front of Tong Ziqing. A palm wind fell heavily on Tong Ziqing's body. Ziqing. Long Yunjan had finally stabilized his divine movement with great difficulty, but he hadn't expected the old man to suddenly charge in Tong Ziqing's direction at that moment. How could Tong Ziqing be the old man's opponent? The palm landed on his body. Her face turned deathly pale. She let out a muffled groan and collapsed to the ground. A heart-wrenching pain filled every corner of her body. The spear in Tong Ziqing's hand also fell into a pool of blood. She moved her hand, but she no longer had the strength to hold on to her spear, nor did she have the strength to stand up. This scene fell into Long Yunjan's eyes. He felt a sudden pain in his heart. He watched as Tong Ziqing's body fell to the ground. Looking at Tong Ziqing, who had no strength to climb up. That cold and elegant face was almost pale, as though she would stop breathing in the next moment. Long Yunjan's heart, at this moment, twisted together fiercely. Ziqing. He roared as the long sword in his hand pointed towards the elderly man, his expression extremely gloomy. "I'm going to kill you." A strong airflow crashed between the both of them. Chapter 2012. However, the disparity in profound grade was something that could not be bridged. Even if Long Yunjan had already used his human dragon strength. In front of the Earth Realm old man, he was still a clown. But moments later, Long Yunjan was also sent flying onto the ground. Yiqing Luo's vision had always been on Long Yunjan and Tong Ziqing's situation. Her heart was getting tighter and tighter. She couldn't wait to rush up and bear their pain on behalf of them. The Earth Realm old man squinted his sinister cold eyes as he sneered sinisterly. "Little thing, after forming a contract with me, I will not treat you badly." His smile became even more unbridled. He lifted his leg and walked towards the direction of Long Yunjan, who had no energy to stand up. Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. This old man indeed discovered Long Yunjan's secret identity. He recognized that Long Yunjan was a human dragon, and he wanted to form a contract with Long Yunjan. Little thing obediently become this old man's battle pet. The Earth Realm old man stood beside Long Yunjan as he bit his fingertip and dripped the blood onto Long Yunjan's body. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Her brother, even she couldn't bear to hurt him. How could she allow an Earth Realm old man to form a contract as a war pet? All along, Zhan had always been a free human. Yiqing Luo had never treated him as a human dragon. If the Earth Realm old man wanted to form a contract with Long Yunjan, he had to ask her if she agreed. Just at this moment, Yiqing Luo felt an extremely subtle change in her heart. She faintly felt a scorching feeling coming from her profound jade heart. Her thoughts moved as she squinted her eyes as she tried to communicate with the God Relic. "I want to expend the God Relic's energy once more. Is that possible?" "Lass, are you crazy?" Old man Tsang cried out in shock. "Based on your current body, using the God Relic's energy once is already considered to be over your limit. Using the God Relic's energy once more, you might not be able to defeat that person from the Earth Realm, and there's a possibility of your body suffering from the backlash. More importantly, your profound jade heart is not stable and cannot withstand your devastation." Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as her eyes were like frost, extremely resolute. "But I have no second choice. I absolutely cannot watch Zhan being contracted by him." Old man Tsang didn't know how to refute for a moment. Indeed, if he used the power of his divine artifact, he might be able to fight to a draw with that Earth Realm old man. Otherwise, even if Yiqing Luo had adjusted her depleted profound energy, he probably wouldn't be able to force the Earth Realm Elder to retreat. Old man Tsang didn't stop him again. Yiqing Luo's thoughts moved, and the divine artifact instantly connected with her senses. The divine artifact obeyed her every command. Chapter 2013. Are you even worthy to touch my brother? Her voice was quiet and elegant, but it was extremely cold. The hurricane dispersed, and a young lady dressed in a fiery red robe appeared in front of the old man. The young lady's face was frosty, and her whole body was releasing flames, which was extremely intimidating. Even the old man couldn't help but be frightened by the young lady's look. The old man's expression changed, and his malicious eyes stared fiercely at Yi-Ching Luo. Stinky lass, get out of my way. He was about to contract a human dragon. He was about to own a dragon as a war pet. Yi-Ching Luo could actually heal her injuries in such a short period of time, and even stopped him from contracting a human dragon. He remembered that when he hurt Yi-Ching Luo previously, he didn't show any mercy. Could it be that Yi-Ching Luo was doing this for that human dragon? The treatment was not over, and she forcefully rushed over. Stinky lass, you know very well what this thing is. The old man's gaze was sharp as he sneered. You only have two choices now. First, bring this living creature out and let me contract it. After the contract, I promise you that I will never find any trouble with you forever. Second, I will spread this kid's secret. I believe there will be many people who are very interested in this living creature. Apparently, the old man intended to threaten Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes were cold as she snorted softly. Her eyes were wrapped with an extremely biting cold glint. Immediately, her lips curled up slightly as she said softly, I choose the third option. The old man didn't expect Yi-Ching Luo to still be able to show off at this time. His face instantly turned gloomy. Before he could react, he heard Yi-Ching Luo laughing out loud. The third option, I will kill you to eliminate any future troubles. The old man couldn't help but burst out laughing when he heard that. Kill me? Just based on you? The old man gave her a contemptuous glance. Following that, his words turned into a tempting whisper. Stinky lass, you'd better be my disciple and hand over this living creature. I know you have a close relationship with this living creature. If you follow me back, you can see this living creature anytime you want, isn't it? Yi-Ching Luo didn't speak again, but directly used actions to explain. Without another word, she attacked the old man. The elderly man obviously sensed that Yi-Ching Luo's profound energy was much thicker than when they exchanged blows not too long ago. Her attacks were all filled with a strong, killing intent. The old man was shocked. How is it possible for this young lady to raise her profound energy to such a powerful level in such a short period of time? How is this possible? Just now, she clearly looked like she was no match for him. What was going on? In the old man's heart, he kept on guessing the reason for the sudden change in Yi-Ching Luo's imposing manner. Under Yi-Ching Luo's murderous attack, it was getting more and more strenuous. Yi-Ching Luo's profound energy kept on increasing explosively. The berserk power was getting stronger and stronger. Bang! There was a loud noise. This time round, it was the elderly who was thrown onto the ground by Yi-Ching Luo. The old man was stunned. This was the first time he had been thrown away by a 15-year-old girl. He sat on the ground blankly for a moment. Shortly after, he leapt up from the ground, the expression on his face instantly becoming savage and terrifying. Senior, she has a god relic on her. That's the power of a god relic. Wolf Saint Technique reminded. God relic? The old man frowned. Young lady, you have a god relic on you? The greed in his eyes could no longer be concealed. This young lady, what background did she have? She had a human dragon as her brother. She had a god relic on her own. She could even use the power of the god relic. Star. Soon after, a 2-meter-long blade appeared in front of the old man who had been devoured by the power of the god artifact. The huge saber glowed with silver light and contained boundless power. Even Yi-Ching Luo was shocked by that ray of silver light, as she took a few steps back. The aura of the divine tool's power dissipated in an instant. The old man fell in front of the saber, his face full of shock and fear. He seemed to be experiencing extreme pain and despair. On his body, the robes had already turned into strips of ragged cloth under the impact of the profound energy. He was covered in blood. It was impossible to tell if it was his blood, or was it the ground which was stained with his blood. The old man took some time before he reacted. Following that, his eyes stared deadly at that huge saber. A loud dong sound was heard. The old man trembled all over as he knelt down towards that huge saber. Chapter 2015. Everyone, Yi Qing Luo. What kind of situation was this? That insolent old man who came down from the upper realm actually knelt down and kowtowed to a huge blade? What was the background of this huge blade? Say, sir. The old man's voice trembled as his face turned ashen. He kowtowed so hard that his forehead turned red. Sir? Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed. Could it be the sir that Wolf St. Law was waiting for? The sir who could make the old man from the earth realm so fearful? Could it be that he was a reputable person in the earth realm? Wolf St. Law had found such a strong external aid. So after seeing 2/3 of the people from the dark forces dead, he was still able to remain calm. Everyone was still looking at the old man in a daze. When Wolf St. Law heard the old man's call, his face instantly revealed an ecstatic expression. He took 2 quick steps forward as he stared at that huge blade agitatedly. You see, are you that useless? A chilly voice came from afar. Immediately following that, Yi Qing Luo felt an extremely icy cold aura coming toward her. On the side of that huge blade stood a tall and straight man dressed in a black robe. The old man raised his head in shock as he looked at the man and spoke in fear. I know I'm wrong. The man's entire body was emitting an unapproachable aura. He merely glanced at the old man indifferently, causing the old man's begging words to be stuck in his throat. Sir, you're finally here. When Wolf St. Law saw the figure clearly, his brows were raised in joy as he took quick steps forward to welcome him. But the man's sleeves moved. A shapeless airflow blocked Wolf St. Law's footsteps. He glanced coldly at Wolf St. Law as he spoke coldly. This is just a deal between us. There's no need to play any relations with me. Wolf St. Law stood awkwardly on the spot. His expression sunk slightly, but he still tried his best to put on a smiling face. Yes, then I'll have to trouble you. The man turned his head around coldly as his gaze swept coldly towards the old man. The old man shuddered as his head banged heavily onto the ground, not daring to make a sound. This, sir. Yi Qing Luo stared at the man's face and was slightly stunned. That face, wasn't he the person who appeared in the martial god formation when Netherworld used the Nether Mirror? Cold. This Yuhan was the Lord who cooperated with Wolf's sacred technique? If her memory served her right. Behind Yuhan, there was a person known as Venerable One. He cooperated with the Wolf St. Law. Was it Yuhan's intention, or the Venerable Ones? They were all from the Earth Domain. Then, was the Netherworld also someone from the Earth Domain? Yuhan also sensed Yi Qing Luo's attentive gaze. His vision fell onto Yi Qing Luo. That gaze made Yi Qing Luo shiver inexplicably. Yi Qing Luo. He accurately called out Yi Qing Luo's name as he stared at her face for some time. West Continent, I'll get it on behalf of Wolf Saint Technique. His tone was calm and cold. He wasn't spouting nonsense. It was just stating a fact. The unanimous opinion was like an ice house attacking her whole body. Her body seemed to be frozen. Yi Qing Luo frowned. Before they even crossed hands, Yi Qing Luo had already clearly felt Yuhan's powerful ability. Thinking of Netherworld, they were from the same place, and it was obvious that their abilities were on par with Yuhan. If Yuhan were to cross hands with her, Chapter 2016. Yi Qing Luo was filled with apprehension and uneasiness. The crowd couldn't tell. When Yuhan called out Yi Qing Luo's name, Other than shock, there was only shock in everyone's heart. Other than astonishment, there was only astonishment. The people from the upper realm all knew Yi Qing Luo. That was the external help that Wolf Saint technique had invited. Knew Yi Qing Luo? Yi Qing Luo's genius reputation had spread all the way to the upper realm. One must know that the old man had already given them a huge shock. That old man was extremely respectful towards Yuhan, and even had that fearful look. It was enough to tell that Yuhan's status and ability were above the old man. Yuhan knew Yi Qing Luo. The strong cultivators from the upper realm knew Yi Qing Luo. What kind of concept was this? As for the matter of Yuhan knowing her name, Yi Qing Luo wasn't surprised at all. Ever since the Godless Array came out, the Netherworld disappeared alone. He would definitely look for Yuhan, and you knew. And through Yu Ming, it wasn't strange that Yuhan knew her name. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were calm as her lips curled slightly. Mr. Yuhan is rather confident in yourself. Yuhan raised her brows. You know me? Through Yu Ming, naturally. Yi Qing Luo replied. So it's that waste? No wonder a waste like you would know him. Yuhan's lips twitched coldly when he heard that. Looks like in Mr. Yuhan's eyes, other than yourself, everyone else is a waste. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but ridicule when she heard Yuhan's words. This wasn't the first time she heard Yuhan say the word waste. It was extremely ear-piercing. In my eyes, all of you are indeed waste. Yuhan didn't bother about Yi Qing Luo's ridicule as he arrogantly raised his head and sneered as he gave her a scornful glance. Even if you want to bring this bunch of waste and leave the West Continent, I have no intention to let any of you off. Everyone must die here, using your fresh blood to celebrate the new birth of the West Continent. Yuhan's voice paused after every word. The pressure from a machine made it difficult for the people around him to breathe just by hearing his voice. From this, one could see how majestic his aura was. What a pity, Yuhan. I'm afraid that your plan to let the West Continent be reborn will never be able to be realized. Yi Qing Luo clenched her 5 fingers tightly as her lips curled into a sinister smile. She did not waste any more time talking to Yuhan. Now, the power of the divine artifact still lingered in her body. If Yuhan insisted on fighting with her, then he had to hurry up. Yi Qing Luo's attack, following her words, had already struck towards Yuhan. Yuhan stretched out her arm. The silver broadsword that was stabbed into the ground suddenly rushed into his palm. He brandished his sword a few times in a fancy way. Without any hesitation, he welcomed Yi Qing Luo's attack. The silver broadsword flickered with silver light, looking extremely majestic and terrifying. The two of them quickly intertwined. After exchanging about 20 moves, the disparity between the two of them became clearer. Even if he possessed the power of a divine artifact, he was gradually at a disadvantage under Yuhan's relentless attacks and the consumption of his profound energy. The scorching feeling of the profound jade heart within her body had already caused her chest to faintly feel somewhat uncomfortable, forcefully expending the power of the divine artifact for the second time, as well as exceeding her load. And after the battle with Yuhan, Yi Qing Luo felt more and more powerless. Only she could vaguely feel an invisible energy in her body, merging into her blood, faintly boiling. Star. Chapter 2017. What was this power? Yi Qing Luo frowned as she raised her hand to press on her chest. The temperature from her palm was different from her body temperature. Profound jade heart couldn't hold on any longer. Yi Qing Luo looked not too far away with an icy cold face. After these tens of moves, Yuhan didn't seem to be affected in the slightest. How powerful was Yuhan's power? She exhausted the power of the divine relic and was unable to hurt Yuhan at all. Yi Qing Luo's breathing became hurried. She could feel the temperature in her palm gradually rising. This was the warning from the profound jade heart. Without the tranquility bead, her profound jade heart couldn't be maintained. The second release of the divine relic's power had completely overloaded Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo's eyes gradually revealed a trace of blood-red color. Extremely flirtatious. Yuhan's gaze suddenly turned cold. His vision was fixed on Yi Qing Luo's blood-red eyes. The blood-red eyes made her look even more devastatingly beautiful. This blood-red color, why did it feel a little strange? Yuhan's heart inexplicably raised an uneasy premonition. His eyes turned cold. He had to end this quickly. This young lady called Yi Qing Luo had created too many miracles. He absolutely couldn't allow anyone or anything to escape his control. As long as he could nip all the sprouts in the cradle before the miracle happened, that would do. The broadsword in Yuhan's hand spun one round in midair, only to hear a loud rumble. The profound light appeared and exploded in all directions. The profound chi was like a spider web, densely enveloping Yi Qing Luo in it. However, the young lady in the profound light. He suddenly raised his head. A pair of blood-red pupils were extremely conspicuous in the profound light. What made Yuhan even more shocked was Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with a sinister coldness, as if even the air had condensed into frost. A gush of red, strong airflow revolved around Yi Qing Luo's body, gradually forming a huge whirlpool. The flirtatious red light looked extremely strange. Her body gradually floated above the whirlpool. She was dressed in a blood-red robe, like a blooming rose. She spread her fingers. The glowing flame fan was like a blazing flame, dancing in her palm. Yuhan's throat tightened, somehow feeling that the current Yi Qing Luo had changed her temperament in an instant. This change made his heart palpitate. Yi Qing Luo's lips slowly curled upwards as the corners of her lips curled upwards, revealing a sliver of chilliness. She took a slow step forward. Step by step, he walked extremely slowly. But with every step she took, it was as if she was stepping on a whirlpool. She was like a goddess on the battlefield. It made one's heart tremble as they looked up at her. "You want to take my life?" Her sweet voice was laced with a hint of coldness. It was like a chilling frost. Yuhan's face darkened, and she was about to retreat. The next moment, Yi Qing Luo raised her arm and triggered the whirlpool, blocking in front of Yuhan. "Now, I want to take your life." The red-clothed girl with blood-red eyes looked like a bloodthirsty war god. With a flick of her fingers, silver threads shot out. If one looked closely, one could clearly see that every silver thread was lingering with a faint red glow. Ah! A miserable scream was heard. Yuhan's body was bound by the silver threads. Fresh blood spurted out. Suddenly, Yuhan's body was hung up in midair by the silver threads. Yi Qing Luo laughed softly. Her enchanting face was extremely bewitching. This imposing manner, not Yi Qing Luo. This was absolutely not the Yi Qing Luo who was exhausted by the divine relic. Star. Chapter 2018. Yuhan could clearly feel that Yi Qing Luo's entire body was emitting a strange aura from her bones. The sharp silver threads were like sharp blades, incessantly cutting his body, as though they were embedded into his bones. Sir. The elderly looked at Yuhan, but before he could make a move, he was subdued by Yi Qing Luo. He was stunned on the spot. Wolf Saint Magic's face had already sunk. This Yuhan was actually so weak? She hadn't even touched the corner of Yi Qing Luo's clothes and was tortured by her directly? Not even comparable to her own subordinates? With this kind of ability, she dared to cooperate with her? Wolf Saint Magic's expression was unfathomable. His gaze towards Yuhan was extremely chilly. "Old Wolf, don't tell me. This is your trump card?" Butterfly Saint Magic, who had long hidden behind Wolf Saint Magic, asked cautiously. Wolf Saint Magic didn't respond for a long time, which meant this was indeed Wolf Saint Magic's so-called trump card. The top exponents from the Earth domain were the powerful external reinforcements that Wolf Saint Magic had invited. "This is your trump card?" A sharp and unkind voice was heard. "This kind of trash that Yi Qing Luo easily played with is your trump card?" The person who said this was obviously the one who had always been at odds with Wolf Saint Magic, Pharaoh He. His face was filled with ridicule as he sneered. I thought you really had some incredible trump card to point your fingers at us and act so arrogantly. Did you really think that after his lordship went into hibernation, you're the boss? Pharaoh he. Wolf St. Magic squinted his sinister cold eyes, reflecting a piercingly cold glint. If my trump card is useless against Yi Ching Luo, then all of us will die. Are you sure you can still continue to laugh? Pharaoh he's ridiculing expression froze. Butterfly St. Magic tugged his arm and looked at Wolf St. Magic. Old Wolf, did you notice Yi Ching Luo's sudden change? Wolf St. Magic's sinister gaze swept past Pharaoh he coldly. Finally back to Butterfly St. Magic. Change? He raised his eyes and looked at the young lady who was floating above the red whirlpool. His pair of eyes seemed to be dyed red by that red glow. Indeed, Yi Ching Luo's sudden change had no signs at all, even when the divine artifact's power was depleted. Yi Ching Luo had never experienced such an intense change. Furthermore, Yi Ching Luo seemed to have changed into another person. On this side, the few of them were full of doubts. Yuhan panted heavily and groaned in pain. Yi Ching Luo had no intention to kill him directly. Instead, he used the silver threads in the gourd flame fan to torture his limbs. A bone-piercing pain assaulted him. Yuan shuddered. He suddenly understood. Yi Ching Luo was planning to cripple his limbs? Want to turn him into a cripple? Yuhan's heart tightened as her vicious gaze stared fiercely at Yi Ching Luo. His eyes flashed with extreme unwillingness and anger. What? Not satisfied? Yi Ching Luo's lips curled upwards as her smile was extremely enchanting. His blood-red pupils were like a blossoming poppy. The Western continent is a place that I want to protect. These people are the people I want to protect. If you want to invade our territory, then you should bring out your strength. If you don't have enough strength, then you don't have the capital to run down to the lower realms and be arrogant and despotic. Yuhan's expression turned gloomy. His body tensed up, causing the few silver threads that were restraining him to cut deeper into his bones. The heart-wrenching pain made even a man unable to endure it as he groaned. Star. Chapter 2019. Yi Ching Luo's lips curled upwards as she raised her arm slightly. Her fair and slender fingers were encircled by a circle of red, profound glow. Just like that, she gently pointed towards Yuhan's direction. Containing the power of the ocean, it set off numerous airflows. Yuhan was entangled by the silver threads and had no way to avoid this attack. A demonic red glow filled Yuhan's pupils. At this moment, he clearly saw a burst of intense, profound rays shot out from Yi Ching Luo's chest. His pupils grew bigger and bigger. That red glow, which enveloped Yi Ching Luo's entire body, was overflowing from her chest. No, not her chest, but profound jade heart. This was the reason for Yi Ching Luo's sudden change. Not giving Yuhan much time to think, the red glow, which encircled like a whirlpool, covered the sky and earth as it pressed downwards. The young lady's alluring smile was fixed in Yuhan's eyes. The red, profound glow merged with the sky full of blood rain. In front of Yuhan, it was a patch of blood color. Just as everyone thought, Yuhan was dead for sure. Lightning flashed and thunder roared in the sky, as the electric current seemed to tear a huge hole in the sky. A ray of golden, profound glow descended from the sky, directly landing on that strong whirlpool which Yi Ching Luo had set off. The golden light turned into a huge shield, enveloping Yuhan in it. The golden light and the red whirlpool blended together. The whirlpool continued to increase the strength and speed of its rotation. But there was no way to break that shield. The surrounding winds and clouds surged, as everything seemed to be covered by those two huge forces. Even the old and young of the Mu family who were supporting the barrier under the raging waves were on the verge of collapsing, unable to support the barrier. But the thought that if the barrier which they had set up was broken, all the commoners and people from the major forces within the barrier would die in these profound waves. Thinking of this, The old and young of the Mu family were still holding on to their last breath, maintaining the barrier. Black clouds filled the entire sky, as dark as night. Only that ray of golden light tore open a huge hole, as though it had opened its bloody mouth, wanting to swallow everything in the lower realm. The terrifying and valiant Qi made everyone's breathing felt extremely oppressed. Yiqing Luo opened her arms wide. The red vortex of air current lingered around her body, as if she was wearing a blazing dress, light as a feather. She narrowed her eyes slightly. Her blood-colored pupils were overflowing with color, and the golden shield in front of her faintly gave her a golden glow. The corners of her lips curled up devilishly, and there was an enchanting coldness in her eyes. Her slender fingers gripped the glowing flame fan tightly and suddenly danced. An increasingly powerful, profound energy burst forth from her body. Her chest was burning like a raging fire. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The devouring flame fan opened, and the silver threads that were dyed red shot out like flowers scattered by a goddess. The silver threads enveloped the golden barrier. Following that, Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. The silver threads tightened as well. However, in the next instant, the energy shield flashed brightly. Gotcha! The sound of silver threads snapping could be heard. The silver threads wrapping around the energy shield were completely severed. When the crowd saw the silver threads snapping, they all drew in a breath of cold air as they let out a fearful voice. Yiqing Luo's slender brows raised as she stared at that energy shield with interest. She casually cut off the connection between the silver threads and the glowing flame fan. She closed the glowing flame fan. Her pink lips curled up into a faintly discernible cold arc. Since you appeared to protect this ignorant person, why not directly show yourself? A clear voice leisurely rang. Chapter 2020. There were still helpers. Everyone in the array barrier immediately looked around. What capital did the dark forces have to be able to invite such powerful helpers? 2 people from the upper realm. Now, there was another person who was even more powerful than the 2 of them. West Continent was really going to be invaded. Everyone's hearts were extremely restless. Pairs of anxious and hopeful gazes looked towards Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo wasn't a match for those people, then what should they do? Unknowingly, everyone had unknowingly placed all their hopes on Yiqing Luo. His gaze was placed on that girl who was only 15 years old. This was the charm of character and ability. It had nothing to do with age. It had nothing to do with gender. Yiqing Luo raised her head as she gazed at the sky, at that golden hole which was torn. Just at this moment, the air in the sky fluctuated and suddenly turned into an extremely intense whirlpool shape. Suddenly, the hole split open again. A mass of black figures floated out from the torn hole. That black mass of figures gradually got nearer. Nearer. Obviously, they were separated by a distance of heaven and earth. However, the black mass of figures was approaching at an extremely fast speed. In a blink of an eye, they had already stopped at the side of the shield. The entire West Continent public square fell into a dead silence. That was, under the dazzling light, a team of 30 people could be seen. They were dressed in silver armors and formed a half encirclement as they came over in a grandiose manner. Under the bright sun, rays of light blossomed behind their backs, as though they were plated with a layer of battle armor. Disdainful stance, vast might, was displayed incisively and vividly in their actions. At the same time, an extreme pressure suddenly exploded from their bodies. That was a pressure that was born from their bones. Everyone felt as if their hearts were suddenly pressed down by a 1,000-pound boulder, and their breathing suddenly became irregular. Some of the weaker ones were even forced to crawl on the ground by this pressure. They were so shocked that their eyes were wide open, and they didn't dare to look straight at him. Terror. Other than terror, there was only terror. Who were these people? How could they have such a powerful, imposing manner? The leader's gaze swept past the public square indifferently, as though he was looking at an ant, as his gaze finally stopped on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she exchanged glances with that person. "Oh no, little girl." Old Man Song's voice suddenly entered his mind. They are the historiographers who maintain the balance of all realms and planes. Historian? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she narrowed her long and narrow eyes. The power of the divine phoenix profound heart jade is too strong. It has exceeded the balance of the lower realm. No wonder the historian of peace interfered in this matter, Old Man Song continued. Yiqing Luo gave a low laugh. She raised her eyebrows, and her eyes were filled with ridicule. "So, old man, are you blaming me?" Old Man Song remained silent. It was a tacit agreement. Yiqing Luo laughed even more wantonly. Her slender fingers curled up a wisp of hair and twined it around her fingertip. Her entire person was extremely enchanting and charming. "If it wasn't for me, all of you would have died here today. You should be thanking me." Old Man Song didn't reply and changed the topic. "That girl's body is still very weak. Before you obtain the heart-calming bead, if you want to destroy that girl, then go ahead and find trouble for her." Yiqing Luo's smile froze. His blood-red eyes flickered slightly. "Star." Chapter 2021. The official in charge had an upright and plain-spoken expression, as he was extremely solemn. He looked at Yiqing Luo expressionlessly, as his voice was icy cold. "Yiqing Luo, you're from Nirvana Realm. Your profound grade cannot exceed the burden of Nirvana Realm." Yiqing Luo lowered her head, as she didn't say a single word. The official in charge frowned, as his imposing manner and prestige unknowingly increased by a few notches. "Yiqing Luo, this official is speaking to you. How dare you ignore me?" The crowd looked at each other in dismay. No matter if it was the royal family army or the dark forces, they were all stunned by this 30-man team. This team, which side were they helping? The powerful, imposing manner on them, apparently. As compared to those two people from the upper realm, they were much stronger. That lass's imposing manner. Her imposing manner. Suddenly, Mu Xiao stared at Yiqing Luo, as his old face turned shocked. After he said that, he realized something, as he immediately shut his mouth, as his white brows creased tightly, as he looked towards Mu Lai. Mu Lai nodded, as his expression was extremely grave. However, even if Mu Xiao managed to stop his voice in time, there were still many people among the crowd, as they heard what Mu Xiao said. Instantly, everyone's attention shifted from those 30 people onto Yiqing Luo. This look made everyone's guts broken. That red whirlpool beneath Yiqing Luo's feet slowly dissipated. Her body slowly descended from midair as it landed onto the ground. Her entire body, at this instance, no longer had the initial arrogance and wanton. Like the inflated balloon was lightly pricked by someone. Instantly, it went blank. What was wrong with Yiqing Luo? Why did she suddenly lose her battle-imposing manner? If Yiqing Luo admitted defeat, then all of them wouldn't. Yiqing Luo, the official standing behind the official in charge, walked out of the team in quick steps. He raised his hand as he tugged Yiqing Luo's shoulder, as his voice was extremely dignified. "Since you're so uncooperative, then based on the strange energy on your body, I'll bring you back to Balance Prison and interrogate you severely." Uffed. An unstoppable clear laughter broke the oppressive atmosphere at this moment. The young lady who had her head lowered slowly raised it. At the same time, just as the official stretched out his hand to touch her, her footsteps moved slightly. Her figure had already flashed, as she was just 5 steps away from the official. "You." The scribe's expression was sullen, unable to believe that he actually allowed a little girl from the lower realms to avoid his hand. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched in disdain. Her eyes, as she stared fixedly at the official. At this moment, the red whirlpool around her, as she stared at the official. By now, as the red whirlpool had completely disappeared. A hint of mockery appeared on her beautiful face. Her voice was clear and sweet, but the words she spat out were extremely sharp. What does the burden have to do with me? Ching, as he Luo, he said. Yi Ching Luo smiled again and pointed at the wolf saint technique, then turned around and pointed at the shield by the side. Isn't it the balance historian? Then, when the dark forces used the Nirvana realm to invade the Western continent and take control of the Nirvana realm, why didn't you, the balance historian, show yourself? Yi Ching Luo's face sunk as her cold eyes revealed a sliver of chilliness. Yi Ching Luo was fearless as she laughed in ridicule. Don't put on an awe-inspiring righteous look in front of me. You can't even settle matter before me. So what right do you have to accuse me of destroying the balance? Star. Chapter 2022. That historian's face turned steely green. Perhaps he had never seen such a rude person from the lower realms. As balance historians, they shuttled through various realms and planes. No matter who it was, they would be respectful to them. But Yi Ching Luo was so daring. The historian clenched his teeth as he stretched out his hand and grabbed towards Yi Ching Luo. Step down. The deep voice was calm and indifferent. It also stopped that historian's action. The head historian's expression was calm as he looked at Yi Ching Luo coldly. Balance historians are not omnipotent. It's not possible to keep an eye on the changes in everything in the world at all times. He explained, moreover, even if the balance historians found out about the dark forces, they need to report it to the upper realm before they can take any further action. The upper realm already knows about this matter. What the dark forces will do next is the upper realm's matter. What we can do is to try our best to prevent the imbalance from happening. That's all. He was really pushing the blame away cleanly. Yi Ching Luo looked at them with a smile, which didn't look like a smile, as her smile became more and more ridiculing. In this way, even if the dark forces really invaded the West continent, the upper realm didn't take any action, so they don't intend to bother about this matter. Allowing the dark forces to collude with the people from the Earth realm to control Nirvana realm, making the people of the lower realms unable to live, and then, after all these happened, using a dignified reason to do something on the surface to cover up all the ugliness? Yi Ching Luo was extremely incisive. Every word, sharp and incisive, simply piercing their hearts. The historian's expression turned gloomy. Even if they were expressionless, the head historian's face also turned black. But they couldn't refute. They had to admit that what Yi Ching Luo said was indeed so. The atmosphere froze for a moment. The head historian continued. Everything in the world is controlled by fate. If the West Continent can't escape this calamity, then it will be the West Continent's calamity. This doesn't mean that you can violate the balance of the lower realms, using energy that doesn't belong to the lower realms to kill people. This person is not someone from the lower realms. Yi Ching Luo sneered. No matter if he's from the lower realms or not, the energy you use has affected the balance of Nirvana realm. The head historian's gaze suddenly turned biting cold. Yi Ching Luo scoffed lightly. They couldn't even protect the peace of the lower realm. There was no need to talk about balance. These people knew that the dark forces were colluding with the people of the land and doing things that violated the balance of the Nirvana realm. However, he still held onto her tightly and refused to let go. He didn't care about the dark faction or the Earth realm old man at all. Could it be that they did not violate the balance of the Nirvana realm? Yi Ching Luo couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on these historians. She looked at them and said, "Now, I will give you two choices. First, go back to where you came from. Second, take this group of people and go back to where you came from." As she spoke, she pointed at the sacred wolf technique and the energy barrier. After a pause, she laughed even more wildly. "Of course, I suggest you to choose the second option. How about this? When I know the consequences of the dark forces and the few people from the upper realm who smuggled themselves into the Nirvana realm, maybe I will take the initiative to turn myself in. The head historian took a deep look at Yi Ching Luo. Then he looked in the direction of the dark forces and the old man from the earth realm. A chill ran down Wolf St. Law's spine. He naturally recognized the origins of these people. Start that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.